Provence. And he was also the constable of the Count of Toulouse. The family lost their power, though, throughout the reign of the king throughout the period of the mid part of the 13th century, and then they also lost the chateau. This is Steven Kruijswijk, who is very well placed overall. Kruijswijk, the Dutchman from Jumbo-Visma, he sits in third position at just 1 minute and 47 seconds behind. And Kruijswijk's training has all been tailored to long climbs, and they're all still to come in the Alps.
Plenty of support for the Australian riders out on course. This is a camper that has been out there every single day, and every single day it seems there's been another flag added.
Well, flying the flag for the French is the yellow jersey wearer, Julien Alaphilippe. Let's now hear what Julien Alaphilippe had to say as we head in to the final phase of this year's tour and 3 enormous stages in the Alps.
I'm very happy with what I've done with the yellow jersey. I gave it my all to defend it yesterday, but it's all been a bonus. I want it to keep going, so I'm going to give everything until the end. Being 1:30 ahead is good. It's better than being 1:30 behind. But if you're dropped on a climb of 15-20 kilometers, or even longer than that, because the Val Thorens stage is a monster all the way to the summit. When you look at the profiles of the coming stages, 1 minute 30 is practically nothing. So the jersey is hanging by a thread. But I'm very happy and very proud to have it on my shoulders.
And before the final day in the Pyrenees, when his advantage was still more than 2 minutes over his nearest rival, another one of his teammates, it's not enough, because in the space of 750 metres on some of the steep final pinches on the climbs that are still to come, you can lose 2 minutes in such a short period of time. So he knows that the defence will be difficult.
And they realise very well it's a slender advantage. And they said he's going to fight to the end, and I really like the way he's ridden, being in the jersey and defending it. You can sort of tell from the way he's speaking, he expects the fight to get a whole lot harder without a great deal of confidence about being able to hang on to it, because he's never been in this situation before in a big stage race. He is going into uncharted waters as far as his own performance goes in the high mountains, day after day. No day on, day off getting in breakaway. And I'm excited for him to see what he can do. He did lose a little bit of time on that last Pyrenean stage, but the day before he took more time than that on his nearest rivals.
But which way is the pattern going?
And that is the important thing. He was looking so good and then suddenly popped. Maybe the rest day will have done him a lot of good, and he'll recuperate on time for the Alps and fight really hard and hang on again in the first day through the Alps, as we see La Capelle, the Chateau de la Capelle.
This was the summer residence of the bishops of Uzès from 1211 right the way up until, and it was sold in 1792 during the French Revolution, and it remained uninhabited throughout the 19th and the 20th centuries. The building started to deteriorate because of that neglect. And then in 1965, the site was bought by a couple of locals impassioned about stone and stone buildings, and they've gradually gone about completely restoring that chateau. It's another example of many of the old chateaux in this region. They can be really cheap to buy off the local government, off the municipality, but incredibly expensive to refurbish. And the restrictions on how you can refurbish it.
Exactly, the materials you're allowed to use and the style in which you're allowed to refurbish something. So you've got to know what you're getting yourself into, but that just absolutely fantastic. And chapeau, as they say in France, tip of the hat to the people who've taken it over and restored it.
These are the feet of Alexis Goujar, who's on a restoration program in this breakaway by trying to restore the pride of AG2R Le Mondial, who has struggled in the shadow of Thibaut Pinot and the entire Group Arm at FDJ team. They have been the star team for the French, and then the star French rider with the yellow jersey, Julien Alaphilippe. There goes Dan Martin in the white colours just through the picture, who said that stage 15 was the toughest stage he's ever ridden in the Tour de France. Big call, might be suffering a little bit from the recency effect, but it was still a really tough stage. Caleb Ewan sitting near the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe. The yellow helmets today being worn by the Movistar team as the leaders of the team's classification competition, in which they have a commanding lead, 30 minutes and 45 seconds ahead of Trek Segafredo.
Just a few days ago, they were some 10 minutes behind. Once we've hit the big mountains, the Pyrenean stages, as we just dodge around the bidon on the road, well, they've taken command yet again, and with Landa, Valverde and Quintana, they're three men whose times count for the team's classification, really taking control of that competition yet again. And on the other side, I'm sure they'll be slightly disappointed in the performance of Nairo Quintana. So much was expected coming into the Tour, and the three-pronged attack of Movistar, but already it's become two-pronged. Just don't discount Alejandro Valverde, but also his history is against him with his performances in the big mountain stages that finish above 2,000 metres altitude. Traditionally, he has struggled and lost time on those, but I still won't count him out.
It's difficult, though, to see a 39-year-old changing that pattern.
It is, yeah, that's the thing. We only get older, and performance inevitably starts to go downhill. But he is such a class rider, the current world champion, and he did a fantastic ride the other day on that really tough stage, the one Dan Martin called the ridden, to come in with Geraint.
8th position overall and only 5 minutes behind, and he's the second oldest rider in the race. He's almost 40 years of age. He's 39. It's incredible.
Just don't count him out. Count him out at your peril.
I think that the best prospect for Movistar to get a spot on the podium beyond the team's classification, which I'm convinced they will win, Mikel Landa is still a threat. He's a long way off. He's in 7th position, 4:54 behind, but he's still a threat for the podium. And number 51. We heard the interview from Julien Alaphilippe, the race leader, but number 51, Thibaut Pinot, the winner of the stage, to the rider that everybody was talking about more than any other on the rest day.
And rightly so. And just looking at him there, sitting with his team, if you notice the cadence he was riding, the high revolution rate that he was pedaling at. So the fact he's even able to do that comfortably shows that he's still relatively fresh in this Tour de France. When you get tired, you tend to just grind a bigger gear over, just roll the legs over more slowly. The fact that he's just tickling away at it with a cadence over 100 revs per minute is a really good sign for Pinot. And yes, a lot of the French journalists are saying he is going to be the man that can win its first Tour de France since the 80s.
34 years they've been waiting. Sprint.
Doing a really long turn, maybe.
It's just the wind-up from Lars Bak. Rosetto is about to just sneak those points. Is he? No, he's not. He marks the respect of Lars Bak. I like that.
That was the other thing I was thinking of, maybe in this group, and the really long turn that Lars Bak was doing. Otherwise, you would have expected to see him swing off. But maybe just a mark of respect, as you said, to one of the elder statesmen of the peloton. You roll through and take this one in what you've said yourself will be your last Tour de France. So I'm happy to see that happen. Here comes the peloton and a wind-up for the sprints that are still on offer.
Colbrelli again looking for points from Bahrain Merida. Sunweb, in fact, also towards the front. Sagan sits and waits patiently in the green jersey.
The lead-out has been let go, one of Colbrelli's teammates from Bahrain Merida. Colbrelli is the man in second wheel. Then it's Sagan, Murku, Viviani.
Is that Caleb Ewan at the back? Just waiting patiently?
No.
Esper de Boost. Viviani, perhaps a chance to test the legs in the sprint. And now the sprint starts. It's Murku in the red colours. Also in the red is Colbrelli. The blue of Viviani. Peter Sagan not wasting energy. Murku will hit the brakes as they get to the line to make sure Viviani gets by him, and he does. An early tester of the legs. So for Viviani, picking up a few points there, that will move him into second position. Colbrelli will still be in second. Viviani will move back over the top of Michael Matthews into third.
Yeah, less difference between the placings when you're sprinting 6th, 7th, 8th as they were. So Viviani will go across in 6th, Murku in 7th, and Colbrelli in 8th. So only a small difference between the two, but that'll just about have them on a tie at the moment, I would think. Maybe 1 point between them. But battling for second, Peter Sagan, just looking back, easing off. I'll take a few points. I've got a massive lead. I'll just track you guys in and save the energy for later on this afternoon. On the other side, Caleb Ewan not getting involved at all. We haven't seen him until now do that either. Nor does Groenewegen. There just seems to be really the interest between Colbrelli and Viviani to try and finish second in this green jersey competition behind Peter Sagan. No Michael Matthews. Maybe thinking about the bigger prizes on offer this afternoon in the sprint, but maybe more specifically tomorrow into Gap. If he's not in the breakaway, I wonder what the prospects are of Sunweb mounting a day-long chase on a 200-kilometre stage that is also going to be a very hot day out. But he wouldn't be without a good chance of winning into Gap. We would expect, if it was to come down to a reduced bunch finish, again it would be a Matthews-Sagan duel.
Well, today the report coming from the Sunweb team is that Michael Matthews will be working for Case Bowl in the sprint finish today.
Today, okay. Like we saw him do in Toulouse.
Yes, exactly.
So, although we saw him go for those green jersey points the other day, really not focusing his attention on that and sharing the chances around on a finish today that probably suits Case Bowl a little bit better than Michael Matthews. I think at this point in the tour, it's probably swinging back more to Matthews being the better of the two. More of a pedigree in a Grand Tour after 2 weeks of hard racing, after all the mountains. Case Bowl, a very large man, the Dutchman, and sure, he's had a tough time through the mountains, through the Pyrenees. We'll find out this afternoon how fresh or totally fatigued that Case Bowl is.
The aim for each rider today to go through 1 water bottle per half an hour?
Yeah, it's got to be in this heat at least 1 bottle per half an hour. And as I said earlier, it's really hard to put that amount of fluid into your body. And most of the riders will find they've still got a balance to make up when they get to the finish. So they may have had up to 10 or 12 litres of fluids today during the stage. Imagine trying to tip that in a 4.5 hour period.
And then they go back to the team bus, they get their urine assessed and they get weighed to measure how dehydrated they are and what amount of fluids they need to get back in the system overnight. It has often been referred to as an eating and a sleeping race, and in amongst the eating is also the consumption of fluids. 38 seconds. They're desperate to try and defy the peloton. Stefan Rosetto in the Cofidis colours swings off. Lucas Wizianowski now goes through to the front. There's been a fall again back in the peloton. And
the Sunweb riders
is down.
That's Bowl.
Chad Hager is waiting with him.
That's Case Bowl.
Jakob Fuglsang as well from the Astana rider. He's had a tough start to the tour. Case Bowl picks himself up from Sunweb. Astana is the team with the panic bike, number 71. That looks like Bilbao, who's doing the mechanical job at the moment for Jakob Fuglsang. Chad Hager is waiting with Case Bowl.
Well, Bilbao, he's trying to get the bike fixed up while another bike has been carried through by the Astana mechanic.
It's Magnus Kort, actually, that's trying to do that. Got that wrong. That's Omar Frale, number 73. This has taken a while to get going. Luis Leon Sanchez is there. Lutsenko is there. This looks like it could be collarbone territory. The helmet is coming off. Luis Leon Sanchez is looking really concerned for the condition of Jakob Fuglsang.
I think that was Frelly just indicating they need the race doctor, and there they are. That cabriolet, the white car, that is the race doctor. They've just asked them to stop as they were driving past.
That is a disaster.
The entire team there, the helmet off, the look, that dejected head towards the ground, that is a very bad sign.
Helmet off almost invariably means a race over. That left shoulder doesn't look good at all.
And the shake of the head.
You can see the compassion in Luis Leon Sanchez. This is not about protecting the athlete. This is about protecting a friend. Dmitry Fofanov is the sports director that is there with them. And they're sending the other riders on their way. The expression on the face of Jakob Fuglsang tells the story. Tour over.
That is race over. Really unfortunate for the Dane, who was sitting 9th overall at 5 minutes 27 down. Still very much in it for a top 6 place in this tour, but that's a sad sight. And you can see he resigned himself to that really very quickly. Helmet off, looked to the ground, a shake of the head to the teammates.
Didn't start well on stage 1 with a crash. He was on the improve as the race continued, but now one small mistake. It's another reminder of how important it is to stay up the front, and it's a cliche, stay up the front and out of trouble.
But sometimes that's exactly where it happens as well. Sometimes your numbers just up. It could have been his mistake, could have been the mistake of the rider in front of him. We don't know. We may hear later on.
Judging by the look of his skin suit, the amount of sort of dust that was on it, it would have been a pretty slippery sort of a corner because of the lack of rain in the region.
These roads are quite slippery, and I know that from racing on them in the past. I know that from riding on them today, going through the final part of the race. But every roundabout on the way into Nîmes, even going slow, you almost hold your breath a little bit and back it off. It's slick. It's dusty. There's a fine layer of dust, and the diesel residue from the cars and trucks. That's just one of those moments. Really unfortunate for Jakob Fuglsang,
who now has officially abandoned the race. Alexis Gujard, Jakob Fuglsang out of the Tour de France. Rosetto, Wisniewski. This is Ursula, and at the back it is Lars Bak. Also involved in the crash, Robbie, was Cees Bol from Sunweb. Therefore, now what happens? Sunweb, Michael Matthews, does he become the priority, or do they stick with plan A and try and bring Cees Bol, the Dutch sprinter, back to the peloton to go for the sprint?
Well, at this point in the race, it's going to be very difficult for Cees Bol to get back to the peloton. The pace is on. The break is just trying to prolong its life at the front of the race, but they're chasing really hard behind. We saw Tony Martin on, but stacked up behind him with a couple of Soudal Lotto riders as well. They are riding really fast. This is going to be a very, very difficult chase for Cees Bol. He spent quite a lot of time sitting down on the ground, then getting another bike. So he's lost probably at least a minute and a half, up to nearly 2 minutes before he gets going. Even if he does get back, he may no longer have the legs to take part in the sprint.
George Bennett with a musette full of water bottles, delivering them to the teammates. Some ice is also there. That's ice that he's now handing over, of the cold water variety, in a stocking. And this is reminiscent of stage 10 when he went back to collect the water bottles. But on that occasion, there was a split. Today, no split.
I would expect now that it's Michael Matthews who gets his chance to do the sprint.
It's back out to 11 seconds.
We've seen a number of teams send a solo rider up to the front, but no team commit a train just yet. It's still too far to go. So whoever can't help in the sprint train, there's a crash again.
Off to the right-hand side, Dimension Data.
Christoph was
and
one.
This is Kreuziger. Kreuziger is well placed overall for Dimension Data. Quick bike change. He's in 14th position in the general classification. He needs to get back to the rear of the peloton to maintain his high placing.
I thought the UAE rider might have been Alexander Christoph, the last winner here in Nîmes. Yet to be confirmed. let's hope it's not for him and his team. The man who is likely to do the best in the sprint finish. Under 5 kilometres to go. This is that little section I spoke about. Keep to the left through the roundabout. You get on the other side, you are lost.
Rosetto it is who's at the front. Lars back in second position. Committed, they've been together. Wrong side of the roundabout, but that was deliberate to get out of the way.
Yep, work done for that rider. That looks like one of the Soudal Lotto riders pulling out of the road.
Looked like it might have been Jens Kerkelaer. This is the breakaway, railing it through that corner.
That is that sharp left. 4.5 kilometres to go. Peloton about to swing out of it, and the gap still just opening a tiny bit. Good news for Alexander Kristoff. It wasn't him. He is still in the peloton.
I thought it was 1-2-4, Rui Costa, that was involved in that fall. Either way, confirmation. The last winner here, Alexander Kristoff, is in with a chance.
The gap back down to 10 seconds now, but they're finding it very difficult to close these last few seconds on the break as they continue to work in unison. This is exactly what they need all the way in.
They may as well be wearing the same jersey in the manner in which they're riding. It's impossible to split the red number for the most combative prize today.
Anyone who chooses to try and do a little bit less, to try and take a rest, call someone in for a turn in front, will ruin the rhythm of the group. They've got absolutely no hope. But at the moment, 11 seconds with 3.5 kilometres to go, and the chase a little bit disjointed behind.
And Bonifacio has just been delivered to the front for Total Direct Energy. They still have Orsolan in this breakaway, but they are setting up for the sprint finish. Yet the breakaway, they're out to 12 seconds.
It's just that holding off. The team's not wanting to start their sprint train too soon. They know when they get to 3 kilometres to go, it's very narrow, a right-hand bend, brings them onto the final straight road, very wide. They'll have them in their sights all the way down. I doubt they'll be making a mistake on this one. Here's that tight right-hander.
It could be a Jack Bauer moment. Caught within the last 100 metres. Might be a little bit sooner than that. Either way, it's Daniel Oss who's at the front for Bora Hansgrohe. Looking for Peter Sagan, who sits in 4th position. This is Lars back, who's not at the back. He's at the front with a flick of the elbow. Let's go, let's keep working. They're breathing down their neck now, though. That's no longer 11 seconds. Caleb Ewan at the end of the train for Soudal Lotto, followed by Edvald Bosenhagen.
Peter Sagan a few positions ahead of him. No sign yet of the lead-out train from De Koning Quickstep, but look for those blue jerseys. They're starting to get formed up. Viviani, he's on Richesi. He's wearing white with the light blue bands. Long through the roundabout, a few smart cookies through the inside.
And the yellow colours, Jumbo-Visma, they're led by the rider in red, Janssen, bringing them forward.
Turnison is the man who will deliver Dylan Groenewegen. Small sprint train. Can they take on the likes of De Koning Quickstep, who are waiting? They're just getting grouped together, waiting for their moment to ride to the front.
And from the original breakaway, Orsolan is trying to attack. Rosetto steps out of the way. Groenewegen, he's got support. He sits on the wheel of Mike Turnison. This is Janssen now who's on the front.
Early at the front, 2 kilometres to go. Slight headwind, remember. Nairo Quintana, he is drifting back, but he'll get back in, no problem. Already lost enough time. We don't need to worry about his GC anyway. He's actually off the back.
Well, he's had a problem here, Nairo Quintana, and he's conceding more ground. Nairo Quintana, he's out of contention to start with. He's in 13th position overall. The race is out in front.
You'll spot the line, 250 metres to go. Slight headwind, a little bit from the left-hand side. Marco Haller, he's the man on the front. Turnison, he thinks this is too early. He looks back. Where's Groenewegen? He's got a rider from Lotto Soudal behind him. On Groenewegen's wheel is Caleb Ewan in 4th wheel, but into this headwind it is very easy to get swamped.
And that's what's happening now.
Mercure goes. He's got Richesi in the wheel. Viviani, Sagan. They pass Groenewegen with Ewan. Groenewegen, he tacks on to Peter Sagan. Kristoff next to him, they're battling. Caleb Ewan behind Kristoff. Ewan is in 7th position. Goes now. He goes when Richesi starts. Ewan out in the wind. He comes in a little bit, picks up a tiny bit of slipstream. Richesi gives him a bit of a check. He's just too strong. Over the top. Clear victory for Caleb Ewan. What a win. This is the team that made the commitment from the first metre of the race, and this is the man who came and rode the final kilometres before the stage started.
He had to negotiate his way around Richesi, who washed off a little bit of speed, but not much, because Caleb was coming with momentum. Photo for second and third. Viviani, Groenewegen. We'd like to see the other angle. Certainly Sagan in fourth.
Caleb Ewan has won this sprint on brute strength. At first, tactically good, following Groenewegen, but they were on the front too early with Teunissen and Janssen. They got swamped from behind. He has ignited the jetpack. Track him on the left-hand side, 64 k an hour, and this is into a slight headwind.
A lot of that
67, getting down, getting aero. Groenewegen, he's coming. It's too late. It's already been won. Second for Viviani, third for Groenewegen, but that is a win by a length.
And Bonifacio in fifth, mind you, so their first top 10 finish, and you said he'd be finishing fifth. Well played. For Caleb Ewan, he had Roger Kluger getting there earlier. Jesper de Boos did part of the last lead-out, but it wasn't a classic style lead-out. A lot of that last 500 metres, in fact, all of the last 500 metres was on instinct. He's a natural-born sprinter.
It is. He was just searching for the line and knows his way to go and get it. But you've got to have the legs. He had huge motivation. He hasn't switched off after that first stage win. He liked the taste, and he's back for the second course.
If he can get through the mountains, he'd love to win in Paris. Who wouldn't?
That's the next goal, of course. So, over the hundreds of years...
Another stage,
listen in.
Clearly you enjoy rest days. You won after a rest day in Toulouse, you do it again here.
Yeah, to be honest, I felt so bad today during the day. I think the heat really got to me, and I was actually suffering so much, and I was almost about to tell Max to get off the front because I was really suffering. But I had extra motivation today. My daughter and my wife are here, so I'm so happy that I could win for them.
Take us through that final kilometre.
I thought we were too far forward. I had Jasper on the front with Dylan on the wheel with 1 kilometre to go, so we weren't in an ideal situation with 1k to go, but he did such a strong pull. Quickstep came past and I lost a few more positions than I wanted to, but I looked at this finish actually at the start of the day and I played all the scenarios in my head, and one of the scenarios I played was if I was too far back. I think if you watch it, I lay off the wheel and really take a run at it and start sprinting before the rest of the guys, and yeah, it worked.
Just won 2 stages of the Tour de France. Can you believe it?
Not really. I said before that it was a dream to be here, and yeah, I mean it was such a big dream to win 1 stage, and now I've won 2, so I can't believe it.
Exploring the ancient Roman heritage of the region, the peloton will depart destination Gap. It's 200 kilometres for stage 17 of the Tour de France. Let's now take a look at what confronts the peloton for stage 17. It starts at the Pont de Gard, 200 kilometres heading through to Gap. Destination eventually after that into the Alps. So this is one of the final chances for a big breakaway. Category 4 climb at the midpoint of the stage, but it's just a gradual drag right from the very start till there. Then a Category 3 climb towards the end before they descend down into Gap for the 25th time in the history of the Tour de France. Sven-Erik Byström at the end there, he referred to one of the great cliches, because it is a truism in cycling, in any sport, endurance sport at least. If you wait until you're hungry or you wait until you're thirsty, it is too late.
Absolutely correct. So sometimes it's a case of the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that old adage is certainly one of those. But it's become so much more scientific in recent years. And things like weighing the riders pre and post stage to gauge their level of dehydration. But there's always the rules of thumb that work. And bear with me on this one, but one of the really easy ones for hydration is when the urine is clear, you're hydrated. And that's just the really easy way to work towards. You can go and weigh yourself and say, oh, you're a 1.2 kilos less than you were at the start, so you need to drink 1.2 litres. You've just got to keep drinking until you need to go to the toilet every 20 minutes to half an hour. You know you're properly hydrated.
And we see so often at the start of the stage, once the breakaway is established, and it might be after only 5 kilometres, particularly on a flat stage in the first week, automatically you see riders stopping by the side of the road to take a nature break. It's so important to be super hydrated at the beginning of the day.
And it's not just water, and it's been really more in the last 25, 28 years. So from in the 90s that the electrolyte sport drinks really became a thing in sport. And that is also really important. But also get the right mix. You can't completely fill up on electrolyte. And a lot of riders like to take one bidon of each, one electrolyte, one plain water. And then also what you're drinking post-stage as well to replenish the electrolytes and get your body completely back in balance and everything that the muscles need to recover. As we just fly across l'Église Saint-Germain in Faucon.
And the actual construction of that church isn't known, but it got a lot of restoration work in the years of 1668 and 1677 throughout that period, where they added the small belfry that you can see at the top of the church as we look at one of the most famous climbs in world cycling, the Mont Ventoux.
And we look at the most difficult piece, the moonscape. You see that line where the vegetation stops and it just turns to the white rocks. The sun reflecting off it on a hot day cooks you. It can be freezing cold up the top on a summer's day as well.
And windy.
And when the wind gets up, it is incredibly difficult. It's not steep towards the top, but you're getting to altitude, and quite often the wind is coming in from the west and blowing a headwind into all this last part as it funnels its way around the mountain. Haven't had a lot of fun experiences going up the Tour, up the Ventoux.
Amongst some of the most famous images from this climb, one of them dates back to 1987 when it was an individual time trial won by Jean-Francois Bernard, the Frenchman whose son is riding this race, Julien Bernard for Trek Segafredo. Can you imagine riding an individual time trial up Mont Ventoux?
At least it's short. The Ventoux climb is 21 kilometres long. I think back to, I think it was the last time I rode the Ventoux in the Tour de France. It was a 221 kilometre stage. The final 21 was the climb. The first 200 we covered in 4 hours.
You're joking.
No. I'm still scarred.
Absolutely. One of my favourite stages.
It was horrific.
One of the favourite stages I ever watched of Mont Ventoux was 1994, the big breakaway from Eros Poli. And he got to the bottom of the climb, was somewhere in the vicinity of 26
Yeah, you had over 20 minutes. Yeah, over 20.
And they didn't finish at the top. They went over the other side and they descended down to the bottom. And he managed to just hold on by a couple of minutes in the end. And he tipped his hat. There was no helmets worn at that point in the Tour de France. He tipped his hat as he went across the finish line. It was a great win by Eros Poli back in 1994 over the top of the Mont Ventoux. This is Jesper Stuyven from Trek Segafredo. Nat Nilberhani trying to keep the body temperature down just a little.
Fun fact about that stage win, it was his only win in the professional peloton.
He held on to win by 3 minutes and 39 seconds. He was out at his maximum lead on that stage.
And I remember being in the Gruppetto with him and with Magnus Backstedt. He was the heaviest rider in the peloton in the years he rode the Tour de France. A couple of others like Stuart O'Grady, Hank Vogels and myself going downhill in the Alps with Eros Poli and Magnus Backstedt. You had to hang into their slipstream. They just descended so fast with the weight, the momentum created by their weight. And we were often over 100 kilometres an hour. So with Eros Poli, he probably extended his gap coming down off the Ventoux.
Yeah, and technically both those guys are really good descenders. It's not just a matter of the weight to gravity equation. Both really good through the corners.
Yeah, technically very good as well. Yeah, carrying speed through the corners and brave. Got some good guys up in the break for this type of stage. We saw just coming through to the front earlier was Gorka Izagirre, but also with Magnus Cort and Omar Freile. Freile is definitely up there. Cort.
We saw Cort up there. He was definitely up there earlier.
He was up there early. We better just do a double check.
Let's do a double check on Magnus Cort. I don't think he's longer.
I
don't think he's in that break anymore. He has been dropped off the back, and Magnus Cort is no longer part of those 33 riders off the front.
He was active very early, but no, indeed, he has not made it, just 2.
They have Omar Frale and Gorka Izagirre. Frale won a stage last year. Gorka Izagirre has been a stage winner at Grand Tours in the past.
Frale is a man who has the strength to go on the attack on his own in a small group, get over that final climb, and he's got a fairly handy turn of speed at the finish as well. That stage when he got to Mond last year was incredibly strong. Came back on Jasper Stuyven, who in the end we were cheering for to make it. It was such a great move that he made. He just literally hit a wall. The wall that is the climb up to Mond.
It is indeed. But for either of those riders from Astana to be able to win the stage, Omar Frale or Gorka Izagirre, they need to reduce the size of this group. So we are in for some action in the final 60 kilometres of this stage. I think it will start to kick off. You can see the red number in the breakaway today. That's Alexis Goujard from AG2R Le Mondial. He was in the breakaway yesterday. Daniel Oss with the flowing locks from the Bora Hansgrohe team. They also have Lucas Postelberger in the break. Number 22 sitting at the rear of the breakaway group. That is Casper Asgreen, who's been doing a lot of the pacemaking throughout this race, mainly in support of Julian Alaphilippe, on occasion in support of their sprinter, Elia Viviani. As he did yesterday, it was Casper Asgreen's final couple of turns of pace up that last climb yesterday that brought an end to yesterday's breakaway group of 5. Yesterday for the Sunweb team, they made the decision very early on, Robbie, that they were not going to sprint as Michael Matthews being their protected rider. The sprint was going to be to set up the stage for Cees Bol. He ended up being involved in the crash that also caught out Jakob Fuglsang, so Matthews got to do his own sprint. But this morning, he's a non-starter. The Sunweb team, they made the decision. He's in his first season in the pro ranks. Let's not rush things with him. We don't want him to exceed his limits into the mountains. So they've had him not start the stage today, which makes it intriguing for me that they made him the #1 protected guy yesterday.
Well, maybe that was the thing. It's his last day. Let's let him have a go at it. But he was involved in that crash with Chad Hager.
So they switched pretty quickly then to Michael Matthews, which shows that it's a really nimble team in terms of its thinking. But Michael Matthews wasn't overly delighted about being told at the start of the stage to work for Cees Bol. The white jersey of Egan Bernal sitting in 5th position in the overall classification. He'd be looking forward to the high mountains that are still to come over the next 3 days.
Yeah. All these climbers and GC riders, you see them lined up by team. Ineos, Movistar, Trek Segafredo and Richie Porte, and the Koenig quick step further back there with Julian Alaphilippe.
Just in his shoes, number 65, Mikel Landa. He is the wild card in the pack. He sits in 7th position, almost 5 minutes behind the yellow jersey, but many are saying he can still win.
I don't think he'll reach the podium. There you go.
Nairo Quintana yesterday, he was caught behind a fall. He didn't crash. He put his foot down. He lost more than a minute again yesterday.
Yeah, we know Mikel Landa is an enigma. Expect the unexpected. He goes on long-range attacks. But I don't think he'll make the podium in this tour. He may threaten the top 5. I think it's just too much time to make up. But surely you've got to pay for that the next day.
He's a rider that Dave Brailsford, the team manager across at Ineos, has spoken about as a threat. He previously rode for Team Sky. They know what they're in for with Mikel Landa. He's the one guy that they think he can launch a long-range attack and sustain it. Others, they back themselves to be able to slowly whittle their advantage down. So look at the peloton being led by De Koenig Quickstep, the advantage at 8 minutes and 29 seconds. 113 kilometres to go at the front of the peloton. Let's now turn our attention to the Tour Media Medal. This is the Tête de course. This is a breakaway group of 33 riders. No real threats here to the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe. The nearest is Xandre Muruse, who's more than 28 minutes behind.
Really impressed about Caleb's win yesterday was not just that laying off the wheel, the slingshot effect out of the slipstream and hitting the front, but that he went from a long way out, a good 250 metres into a slight headwind, and just held that. He didn't look like he was fading towards the line.
But it's a long way from Paris from here.
Yeah, and he's going to need a lot of help from his teammates, guys like Jens Kerkeleder, who's just coming through to the front now. Maxime Montfort, everybody in the team, basically. Jasper de Boer sticking with him, also Roger Kluger. And Caleb said after the Pyrenees, he put a photo on his Instagram and said, it was with his teammates, I've got to thank these guys because it's them who got me through. There were some really rough moments today and I thought I was almost out.
Yeah, the teamwork for a sprinter, the support for a sprinter, it's not as simple as just the lead-out train. In fact, often it's all the other stuff that we don't see that happens at the back of the peloton. That was Edvald Boasson-Hagen rolling through to the front of the breakaway group. At the back of the breakaway, in last position, that is Bauke Mollema. Just in front of him is his teammate Jasper Stuyven. And they also have, in this breakaway group, the Latvian national champion Tom Skuins. Simon Clark in the pink colours rolling through. And the white colours, the former world champion, that is Rui Costa. Followed then by the Colombian champion of a few years ago, that is Sergio Henao. Latvian national champion is next in line, that is Tom Skuins. Then it's the European champion, Matteo Trentin, followed by his teammates, that is Chris Juul Jensen. The Dane who speaks with a very thick Irish accent. Spent all of his teenage years up till around about 15 or 16 in Ireland. In fact, he spent most of his childhood in Ireland before moving back to Copenhagen in his mid to late teens. They hit the base of the first climb of the stage. It's a Category 4 climb. It's 2.3 kilometres in length with an average gradient of 6.2%. Is it too early to see any action from this breakaway group?
Yeah, I think it's still too early. 97 kilometres to go. I mean, there's long-range moves, but 97. I'd find it hard to imagine that anybody in this group is thinking, yeah, just inside 100k to go, that's when I'll go solo.
Particularly in this heat.
Yeah.
Kasper Asgreen, number 22 at the back of the group. But Thomas de Gendt might just test everybody's legs a little. Can we thin the group? There's rules, and then there's Thomas.
Yeah, that was the next thing to get to. If there's anybody in this group that might just do it, there's that man.
And Rui Costa is staying nearby. So too is Simon Clark. They're well aware of the reputation of Thomas de Gendt. Do not take your eyes off Thomas de Gendt. Back in the peloton, they're still being led by De Koning Quick-Step. Today, Julien Alaphilippe has himself ranked as equal 15th in terms of French riders and their time in the yellow jersey. This is his 12th day in yellow. He had 2 days at the start of the Tour before surrendering it to Giulio Ciccone. But if he takes it today, he'll move one step further forward in those rankings of Frenchmen to have worn the yellow jersey. It's the one in Paris that the French really want. It's been 34 years since they've had it. De Gendt, followed by Mickey Shah. Good to see the Kiwi in the pink colours, Tom Scully in the breakaway today.
Yep.
He's organising another ride with his good friend Tim Wellens, who currently wears the King of the Mountains jersey. That's in Spain this year. It's a 750-kilometre loop that they're doing. Lots of gravel roads. It's Thomas who designs the course. He designs the kit they wear, and he makes all the decisions on the bike. Tim does what he's told.
Good partnerships, kind of like ours.
Who's who?
I just do what I'm told.
Have you ever done what you're told? I'm going to ring your mum. What was Robbie like when he was 12? Did he do what he was told? I know your brother well enough to give me the inside information. I reckon Roscoe will tell me a totally different story.
Yeah, we're a bit different. I don't do what I'm told, but I don't do all the planning. You do all the planning? Well, of certain things.
Yeah, you do the executing of the restaurants brilliantly. You are the master of picking the restaurant and the wine list. I just hand it over to Robbie. He's got it covered. And we go with the local cuisine and the beverages of the region.
And I'm also happy with our roles in the driving, where if it's a complicated evacuation from the finish area,
it's all Robbie, trust me. If it's complicated, it's Robbie. If it's simple, it's me who does the driving.
I don't know what it is, but the car seems a bit narrower when I drive.
And faster. Goes around corners quicker when you drive it. This is Dylan Toynes in the red colours for Bahrain Merida. One stage win already. That was on stage 6. That was to the top of La Planche de Belleville. He's got his mojo this year, Dylan Toynes. He can definitely win this stage today. He'll need to get away from the likes of Jasper Stuyven and perhaps even number 22, Kasper Asgreen, but he could pick up another victory. I
would like to thank Paul Carey on Twitter for just doing some quick mathematics for us. We were just talking about the difference in aerodynamics, and over an 8.5 second period of a sprint, or which is around the last 200 metres, 1 kilometre an hour equals 27.7 centimetres a second. So over 8.5 seconds, 1k an hour equals 2.36 metres, or a bike length, which is what Caleb won by yesterday. So thank you for confirming my thoughts with actual mathematics.
Hashtag we love Paul. Fantastic. Nailed it. It makes all the difference.
Check out the big brain on Paul.
Just a little bit too much Pulp Fiction. It's the Royale with cheese. Almost at the top of the climb for the breakaway group, and I'm suspecting that Thomas De Gendt will take the points at the top. He currently sits in 3rd position in the King of the Mounts classification. He's 27 points off the lead of his teammate, which is Tim Wellens. And it's only 1 point at the top of this climb. But as we saw through the intermediate sprint, Thomas De Gendt, he sees a prize, and it's like a red rag to a bull.
Yeah, and he'll just set the pace, and he'll set enough pace. You look what's happening in the back of the group. Little splits, guys chasing across gaps. Thomas just making sure that he's setting enough of a pace that everyone goes, oh, okay.
And the other thing that they're doing is they want to stick with him. Daniel Oss is aware of this. So too is Alexis Goujar. Coming around the outside is Pierre-Luc Perichon. They would probably be thinking, we need to stay with Thomas De Gendt just in case. But he's backing off.
Yeah, he had a look and he backed off. But what he sometimes does is he has a look as if, oh, okay, you're there, I'll just ease up. And he even sits up higher and he starts pushing the pedals harder.
Whilst he's got the body language of up high and relaxed.
Yeah, sneaky.
Clever.
But I still think it's way too far to do a move like that. And he has eased right off.
But Pierre-Luc Perichon was cautious.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone
Even Oss. Daniel Oss didn't want points, so he thought, I'm just going to have a look and make sure that if they'd gone over the top with 4 and a gap had opened up, Oss thought, well, let's not get caught out just in case. Rather make an effort that turns out to be unnecessary than not make an effort, which at the end of the day, you think to yourself, oh, gee, I wish I'd just gone.
Yeah, you'd rather be cautious than wrong than too relaxed and wrong. Peloton still being led by De Koning Quick-Step out to 10 minutes and 35 seconds.
And it is absolutely pouring down on the head of the race. And looks to be a very localised storm, but it's one that was on the forecast, the possibility of local storms throughout the area. As the heat builds up in the Alps, the cold air meets the hot air, suddenly you've got a storm front on your hands. And we even had a bit of picture break up there just from the amount of rain falling from the sky.
That is an incredible turnaround in terms of the weather conditions, and this looks picture perfect.
Look in this direction, completely clear. Looking out of our commentary booth, there's a few heavy clouds on the horizon, but here in Gap at the moment is also fine.
Would you welcome the rain, given the heat that we've had?
Absolutely, yeah. It would feel wonderful.
One of the few occasions where you would actually welcome the rain. Wonder how long it will last, because it's still really warm here at the finish line. It's still up in the mid to high 30s. Here is the breakaway group. There is Nico Roche in the red colours now rolling through to the front, followed by the Olympic Games gold medalist from Rio, that is Greg Van Avermaet. Then Ben King behind him with the green helmet on. The yellow helmet, that is Nelson Ottavietra from Movistar. They lead the team's classification. Behind him in pink is the Kiwi, Tom Scully. Phenomenal. And the peloton there at 12 minutes and 19 seconds. They haven't hit the rain yet. It has to start and stop somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's quite possible that it will move across and the peloton will just hit wet roads and think to themselves,
what happened here?
Absolutely torrential on the front group at the moment, but they, I'm sure, will be actually enjoying it. Here's the first drops, it looks like, for the peloton as well, and the big drops of rain. Really heavy.
Well, that gorge that we went through a little while ago, they had a horrible flood that went through there in 1992, where sadly 37 people passed away. So a flood can hit this region really quickly.
You see how gingerly they were through that last corner as well. When it hasn't rained for a long time, then it suddenly pours down. Things can get a little bit slippery as well. But rain this heavy is likely just to wash the roads completely clean. Any residue that's built up, that'll be gone in that section.
And what about the contrast to that in terms of racing in the rain and the spray with the water coming off the wheels and the chance of picking up a bug and infection as a result of that. Does that increase by much?
Only very slightly, I think. More so in real rural areas where there's a lot of dirt on the road, that's mud out of the fields that have been fertilised with manure and that sort of thing, like the races we see in Belgium in the spring.
Mikkel Mørkøv, I think that smile at the front is at the irony of the change in the weather conditions. From boiling hot, and the rain is hitting the ground and evaporating almost straight away. Thibaut Pinot is all smiles. He likes the cool conditions.
There's riders with blocks of ice down their back, and now they're about to get poured on. Here it comes down on the peloton. And Julien Alaphilippe, I think he's saying, oh, well, at least we're going to cool off.
It's William Bonnet who he's speaking to from Groupama FDJ.
Look at all the smiles.
Enjoying it. Yep.
Quite often in a race, when it starts to rain, you see the looks on the faces.
They go long.
They get very long. And now, there's so many guys just starting to smile, think, well, this is going to be really nice. Kind of like having a swim.
We haven't seen a whole lot of the lavender fields throughout today's stage, which, as we head through the region of Provence, I was expecting to see more of it.
I think we're just a little bit too
south?
far north.
Or north.
Down around Aix-en-Provence, you see a lot more of those lavender fields, as we see another one of those beautiful shots as we have throughout the tour of these magnificent birds soaring high. Not too spooked by our television helicopters.
Not spooked by the rain either, because they haven't been hit by it yet. We've got additional votes to be awarded today. Alex Dowsett, Mr. Consistent. He's hunting down George Bennett. I'm going to award him 2 votes. 1 vote for the pause and 1 vote for the comment about, gee, Geraint Thomas finding a way to crash at the end of the tour potentially, but locking him in for second behind Thibaut Pinot. Alex Dowsett, 2 votes.
Long hesitation, the big
I
R.
loved it.
Sounded like he was at the doctor.
That incidentally puts him into clear 3rd place in the race for the Tour Media Medal. He's on 7 points. It's currently being led by George Bennett, who's on 12, and Thibaut Pinot and Geraint Thomas, who also got a mention from Alex Dowsett. They're on 9 votes.
As the peloton is led by De Koning Quickstep through Le Gorge de Meuge.
What did you think of his forecast that Thibaut Pinot will win ahead of Geraint Thomas and Julien Alaphilippe?
I think the first 2, reasonable enough. Yeah, why not? But if Alaphilippe cracks, I think it's going to be much bigger than that, and I think he may drop to the bottom end of the top 5 or 6.
Yeah.
If he goes. He showed signs of it the other day in the Pyrenees, but this tour has just given us so many surprises. That should Alaphilippe hang on, I also won't be shocked.
The tennis ball theory, if you drop the tennis ball, it bounces back and that bounce gets less and less. How much more spring does he get in his tennis ball after the rest day? We don't know. We won't know until tomorrow.
It's not an exact science. Now, he had to be dropped up there by helicopter. Surely you wouldn't climb that.
Rock climbing. He's got the safety rope. He must have. You can't drop somebody off on that through the chopper. It would be worth watching if they did.
I was just looking at all the loose looking rocks up towards the top.
The French are so famous for their rock climbing.
Well, he's a lot braver than I am.
He's a hell of a lot braver than I am, I can assure you. Peloton still being guided by De Koning Quickstep, the team of Julien Alaphilippe. It is magnificent. We talk a lot about all the man-made structures, but this is Mother Nature at her very best. I like that he's got the polka dot jersey on. See, he's climbed up. You can see the safety harness.
Oh, my goodness. You know that feeling you get in the bottom of your feet when you're watching someone else stand at a really great height in a precarious place? Maybe you don't know, but that's what I've got now.
I've just taken a look at the King of the Mountains classification. It's Tim Wellens leading on 40 points, Thibaut Pinot in second on 50 points, and that guy moves into third
he should
on
just
45.
move up. Absolutely.
That's categorised on its own, that climb. This is Chris Juul Jensen for Mitchelton Scott at the front in the black and yellow. His former teammate Jens Kerkelaer now rolls through to the front. You can see the expression in their faces starting to change and looking a lot more serious. The tension on the face there of Tom Scully. Simon Clark now comes through in the pink. Mickey Shah in the orange colours has been doing more work at the front than his teammate, Greg Van Avermaet.
To the 14 minutes, under 50 kilometres to go, there's no real reason to be swapping off in earnest anymore. And I've seen little signs. I spotted a couple of riders just tighten a shoe here and there. Riders start to spend a little bit more time at the back, a lot more talk on the radio.
This gorge that we now journey down through, it's classified as a natural zone of ecological fauna and flora interest, so it is protected by the government decree. Peloton in single file, they're really just trying to get through to the finish line.
It's protected, but you're still allowed to climb all over it by the looks of things.
And race your bike through the middle of it. Yves Lampaert on the front. They have had an enormous tour. Their big focus really was the first week to try and win a stage with Julian Alaphilippe, the sprint finishes with Elia Viviani, and then see what they could do overall with Enric Mas. This is the breakaway group. This is Niels Pollitt. He's all smiles. He's enjoying himself.
Let everyone know what's happened right from the start if they're just tuning in. And I was looking at my race book, small downhill, and I was just about to say, this is the time when the opportunities are starting to come up, places on the route to attack. Small uphills, little sections where it's possible to start the action. And just as we were going to go to that package, we noticed the first little split occurring in that front group, the breakaway of 33 riders. It's starting.
And it wasn't so much as an attack. It was some of the tactical moves of people trying to stay at the back and stay out of the wind. Chris Juul-Janssen now at the front.
It's that manoeuvring, putting himself in a position just to do a little bit less for a little while, really save the legs, and then start to think about what's coming up. They've done that downhill. Now there's a series of small uphills, and here's an acceleration into a corner.
It's Mollema who is the first to go. This is a genuine attack from Bauke Mollema. Robbie, once again, you have read the tea leaves correctly. It's Alexis Gujard who is responding.
Well, Mollema with Stuyven in the group, this is exactly what he had to do. Go long range, force the others to come with him. If a group forms with him, then you can afford to start sitting back and doing less or nothing at all and say, I'm going to ride for Stuyven. I want him to come back to us because he can beat you all in the sprint. But he's a man who has won a stage a couple of years ago in the Tour de France, stage 15, Le Puy-en-Velay, with a late attack out of a breakaway group.
And he attacked just before the bottom of the final climb, and they never saw him again because he is so strong.
And he's technically good. You saw where he attacked, going into a corner, catch them by surprise, open a little gap up. The reaction came really quickly, though, from Gujard, and it looks like he's closing the gap, but a little fracture at the front of this group.
The importance of attacking going into the corner versus going out of the corner.
Well, you've already exited. There's someone in your wheel. It's a pretty obvious move. Going in, you can catch them off guard. An attack now by Scully.
And Alexis Gujard, the rider that I spoke about earlier, is perhaps pays the price for the fatigue of being in the breakaway yesterday. The man in the yellow shoes is showing no such signs. And in fact, it's Gujard who is the next to go.
It's Gujard just not wanting to miss out. So maybe thinking to himself, it's tactically so difficult to pick. I'm going to follow the first couple and immediately I'm going to go as hard as I can and see if I can get away. Then you don't have to react to attacks.
You are the attack.
You are the attack.
Lots of the riders in the red colours from Sunweb down at the back of the peloton. Their big hope today, they only have one hope. It's Nicholas Roach, who is in the break. Cheers to the two lead-out men for Elia Viviani doing the job today for the yellow jersey. The white, that is Max Richesi. In the red, the Danish champion, Mikkel Mørkøv.
A very straightforward defence for De Koning. Quick step. Everyone pretty relaxed in the peloton. This is Emmanuel Buchmann. Some people have been saying, oh, under the radar. Nobody's talking about him. We're talking about him every single day. We have been since the start, and said that he came out of the Dauphiné with a third place in the back pocket, and he was always going to be a contender for a top 5. He said, I'd like to finish top 10. He's underestimated himself.
In addition to that, whether we're talking about him or not, the riders in the peloton are. So to the man in the red, sorry, not the red and the black, the yellow and the black, and that is Steven Kruijswijk. The best young rider in the race, Egan Bernal. Importantly, though, he sits in 5th place overall, Niels Pollitt.
We went through that list and said who needs to do what and when, who needs to go long range, and this was one of the men we said go long range. A very good time trials, fairly handy uphill without being a climber, and not slow at the finish. So get into a group, get into a 5 or 6 man break, and he can definitely win from that.
This is the strategy that you said he needed to adopt when we went through it a little earlier on.
It's Jens Kirkeleder who's come out after him from Soudal Lotto, so that's a man with a fast finish. Not ideal for Pollitt.
No move yet from Thomas de Gent. Perhaps he waits for a few attacks to soften the legs, and then he goes.
Well, a very technical section. Niels Pollitt pushing everybody to the limit if they want to close this gap.
It looked a little dusty through that corner also.
Well, everybody on the chase, and Kirkeleder, he is getting across the gap. It's Jules Jensen in the background with Goujard, Tom Scully. So the men who were on the attack just previously, that narrow winding road has just kept them at the front. Everybody strung out.
And 2 of the 4 riders from Cofidis are at the very back of the group.
Not a good sign.
That is Pierre-Luc Perrichon, who is at the rear, and this group is really strung out. This is some serious pressure at the front. Kirkeleder has made it across, and he's created a little bit of a gap to Tom Scully in the pink colours.
And that next group still has a gap over the rest, all looking over the shoulder. Edvald Boasson-Hagen is in that group, the man in the bright green helmet. Looking back look like Jasper Stuyven on the front of the rest of the group.
We see this vehicle with the Australian flags and the boxing kangaroo every stage of the Tour de France. Tim Wellens at the back, number 168. He will have enjoyed the rain showers. He despises the heats. He has to get into the breakaway tomorrow if he's any chance to win that polka dot jersey.
Well, not much is going to change back here either, but up the front, the change is happening. The attacks have started to rain down from the front group. Niels Pollitt and Jens Kirkeleder keen to see what their gap is over the rest, or if they've already shut them down.
This is from the breakaway group, number 123. That is Sven-Erik Byström. And when he won the under-23 World Road Race title, Caleb Ewan was second. And he's spoken about watching Caleb take that next step up, and he's really enjoyed seeing Caleb have that success. Simon Clark now in pink.
So back in our front group, Simon Clark has a little go. Trenton was the man in his wheel. Everything come back together after that attack by Niels Pollitt.
There's now 3 of the 4 riders from Cofidis in the back 6 riders of this group. This is Burhani at the rear. Just in front of him is Omar Frale from Astana.
Some of the riders in this group, they'll just gamble on having the tactic right. Think, I won't get involved, I won't attack or chase yet, I'll sit further back, rely on everybody being really keen not to miss it. Just wait a little bit longer. It's playing your cards close to your chest, holding your nerve, and just hoping you've picked the right tactic.
In terms of the general classification from that breakaway group, Zandro Muruse starting the stage in 19th position. With this advantage, he's now moving himself up to 13th place in the general classification. It's a pretty good day.
Yep, but a day out here in the break may well cost him a whole heap of time tomorrow in the mountains and see him fall even further back than he was already.
You do.
Well, the Alps are looming for the entire peloton of this Tour de France, but at the front, the thoughts are not on the Alps, it's on the stage win. This is Goujard. Behind him, Ben King, Jules Jensen. He sits up, so the gap opens.
And Goujard wears the red number as the most combative from yesterday's stage. He was in the day-long breakaway. Theoretically, he should be the most tired guy in this breakaway group, but he's showing so much vigour to press on and try and win.
Maybe that's the thinking behind his attacks. I'm tired from yesterday, I'm fatigued. I'll just throw out big attacks and see if I can get away. Maybe he's feeling I'm probably not sharp enough at the end to make a big attack, so try and slide away. But they're not sneaky attacks. Big horsepower.
He's got Ben King with him, who's got plenty of his own horsepower. Now sprinting across, that is Tom Scoynes, the Latvian national champion, followed by Stake Langen from UAE. Van Avermaet starting to pay attention at the front.
And gritting the teeth too, the Belgian in the gold helmet. And the gap opening up. Look ahead, there are some 10 or 11 riders And Jules Jensen has not managed to go with the eyes going across, but Matteo Trentin is one of them, the teammate of Jules Jensen.
And he makes contact at the back. Moore trying to go across. Scully is amongst them in the pink colours.
Daniel Oss, he's the man just making contact. So Trentin getting organised straight away. Right to the front, says, come on, this is it, let's split it. They've left behind around 20 riders. Asgreen is the man trying to come across.
He has the legs to go across, the 22-year-old Casper Asgreen.
Simon Clark just jumping out of the remnants of that breakaway, the big group behind. You just see him coming over the crest in the pink jersey. There he is, Nico Roach. He follows his example.
Now this group, they sit and they wait. They try to work out who will do the chasing. And it's Thomas de Gent who is on the front, because also in this group is Jens Kerkelaer. So the two riders from Soudal Lotto from the breakaway have missed the split.
Yeah, both missed it, so that's not a good sign for this group, having Thomas de Gent trying to chase you down. But that is now a big gap. Simon Clark down in the aero tuck in the background. Then it's Nico Roach. And now it's Nelson Oliveira on the front of the rest of the group. Asgreen, he is on the verge of making contact, but they are really going. Good cooperation in this front group.
This is the back of the breakaway. Number 136, that's Bolka Mollema, who started it all.
Big tailwind down the valley as well. Simon Clark looking like he's starting to get stranded. Another big turn from Trentin.
The key notable, Clark is sitting up. He's about to be caught by the chasers. The key notable for Matteo Trentin, he knows that Jasper Stuyven is not in that front group. And he's probably the only guy from this breakaway that could beat Matteo Trentin in a sprint finish.
Yeah, they've got Scoynes there, who is actually just waving other riders through. So Scoynes, it looks like he's suffering. And having the firepower of Jasper Stuyven behind, you may think Scoynes will think to himself, I'm really feeling the pinch. I've got a fast guy from the team behind. I'm going to sit on, I'm not working.
And Asgreen has made contact. There he is in blue from De Koning Quickstep. The workhorse gets an opportunity.
He is quite incredible. The amount of work that he's done on the front of the peloton in this Tour de France, and had a heavy crash on stage 3. He's bounced back from all of that to get in the break first thing today and now get across that gap. Incredible from the young Dane.
He'd be a popular winner if he was to collect the stage victory. Chris Juul Janssen off to the left. He follows the wheel of Niels Pollitt. He's trying to discourage the chase from this group because his teammate Matteo Trentin is amongst the leaders. This is Nico Roach now at the back in the red colours of Sunweb. He sits just behind Sergio Henao. And for the Cofidis team, they've managed to get Pierre-Luc Perichon into this group, number 156. Van Avermaet, who you spoke about in orange, doesn't miss many, and he hasn't missed this one.
He went and he was with the attack after Bauke Mollema really kicked things off, and then De Gent's missed the next one. That's how you've got to ride when you're in a break with any sort of numbers. You've got to back each other up. When one's made the effort and been in one, you've got to make sure you make the next one, or you're on the back foot and you're chasing. And that gap opening up now, 26 seconds between, vehicles passing by, official motorbikes, cameras. Not a good sign for the chasing group.
11 riders in this group. Number 22 is Casper Asgreen. Just in front of him, Tom Scoynes. Just in front of him is Gorka Izagirre. This is Niels Pollitt trying to go across. Pierre-Luc Perichon is in the group for Cofidis. Matteo Trentin for Mitchelton Scott. The CCC, they have Greg Van Avermaet. The American Ben King is there for Dimension Data. Daniel Oss is in the group for Bora Hansgrohe. Stake Langen is there for UAE. Alexis Gujard for AG Tour Le Mondial. Tom Scully, the Kiwi, for EF Education First. Pollitt on his own, trying to go across.
Well, all but two of the riders in there are doing what we said they needed to do to try and win, and go long range from somewhere just within 40 kilometres down to 25 kilometres to go, try and get in a suitable sort of group. But the man going off the front is one of the big dangers for this group, Matteo Trentin with his sprint. So is Van Avermaet, and Gujard has blown.
Finally paying the price for yesterday.
Said it earlier when we said he's so active, maybe because he's already feeling the pinch and thinking, I won't be good enough to go in the final part of the stage. I'll see if I can get away and get in a group and they let me slide. It's caught up with him.
The one thing the team criticises Alexis Gujard for is being too aggressive. It's a nice thing to be criticised for, but today's paid the price for being a little too active.
He's out-attacked himself.
Yes, he has.
Good effort nonetheless, being in the break yesterday, and really yesterday was not the day to go in a break when you saw the body language of Sudal Lotto early on. But look what it's done to the group here. There was the acceleration by Trentin. He was off the front, nobody followed, and now they're starting to look at each other. That teamwork element of the break has gone out of it.
He's trying to drive the break, but he's disrupting the break, Matteo Trentin. And a lot of the riders in this group, they would fear Matteo Trentin, rightly so, in the sprint finish. He has beaten Peter Sagan in a sprint finish to win a stage in the past.
And he's really being up front with his riding and pushing the pace and talking a lot, where Van Avermaet is trying the opposite tactic. Just, nobody sees me, I'm just floating along. I'm not even really here.
A little bit difficult not to see Greg Van Avermaet.
Don't mind me, I'll just do what the rest of you are doing and beat you at the end.
But he's shown his experience here. He's recognised that the pace has dropped off. It's losing cohesion. He rolls through and you saw the head turn back. He's talking to the others. Come on, let's roll.
Os comes through, but back into a single file line. Os, Van Avermaet, Scully, Asgreen, Matteo Trentin, Ben King, Langen. Then it was Scoins at the back. Gorka Izagirre just taking a drink. Now, he is the sleeper in the group. I expect a clever attack from Izagirre.
His brother's been a stage winner in the Tour. That was in the rain into Morzine. That was in 2016. He'd like to join him as a stage winner in the Tour de France. Neutral Service still providing the water, and there'll also be a Mavic Neutral Service motorbike, but not car, directly behind them. This is the peloton going through the motions. The Yates twins at the back. Number 108 Simon, he's been a dual stage winner in this year's race. 101 Adam Yates, he's trying to work out what has gone wrong. His season was meant to be Tour de France, then onto the Volta a España. It's been announced that he won't be riding in Spain. No Volta a España for Adam Yates this year. This is
good decision too.
Third from yesterday, Elia Viviani sitting just behind the white jersey. Mikkel Mørkøv still at the front, the Danish national champion. The yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, should come out of today reasonably happy. It's been a stress-free day, as much as there can be one for the race leader.
Yeah, he'll be very happy with how it's gone today. Completely stress-free, and even in the beginning, he was just sitting in the wheels, cruising along, even though it was 50 kilometres an hour. That is cruising. You get to this end of the Tour de France, although you're tired, you're fatigued, you just get used to riding at that speed as well. You just turn it over and float along in the slipstream. Asgreen pushing the pace at the front.
He's done a lot of work throughout this year's Tour, a lot of work on the front, but today he's been saving energy at the back.
Remember back in the Tour of Flanders in April, he did so much work throughout the race.
For others?
And then he finished on the podium. Second.
Yeah. And it was a solo second place finish. Bettiol was off the front on his own, and then Asgreen just slipped away from the next group, and they didn't catch him. He is strong.
And he did a lot of work in the first 10 days of this Tour de France, and he was
8th.
Top 10 in the time trial.
8th. 8th in the time trial. We declared him as the unsung hero the following day.
7 seconds, and they're starting to think about the climb that's going to come. It starts with around 13 kilometres to go.
You rode it this morning. What sort of opportunities does it present for this group?
14 kilometres to go, the start of the climb. It's 5.5 kilometres long, 5.2. So it tops out at around 8.5 kilometres to go. Out of this group, there'll be a couple not counting on their climbing skills, maybe looking for another attacking opportunity before they get to the climb, get a head start. Although that's a danger in itself, get a head start for the climb. It's risk-reward. You might not get a lot of a lead. Have put yourself right in the red zone. As soon as they come back to you, you go through the group and out the back.
Simon Clark tried that a few days ago and then paid the price. 4 kilometres to the bottom of the climb.
I haven't seen Gorka Izagirre come through for a turn. Maybe we've just been off on a scenic shot like this wonderful shot of Le Montagne de Suze, pardon me.
This one also stands at a little bit over 2,000 metres. Another one of the popular spots for rock climbing. You can see that limestone face of it. It's no wonder that it's one of the more popular destinations in this region for rock climbing. With the terrain that they have down here as we head towards the Alps, it's no surprise that it's very popular. Peloton still being led by Yves Lampaert, the former Belgian road and time trial champion. It's out towards the 20-minute mark by the end of the stage day, I think, that advantage for the breakaway.
Yep, we'll just see what maybe a team like Movistar, some of the others might do on the climb. Just ride a little bit quicker, possibly thinking just be in position for the descent. It's not a technical, difficult descent, but nobody wants to get caught out.
It's not the traditional descent that we see down into Gap, which was a hair-raising one.
No, that was off the Col de Mans, the Category 2 climb, and we've seen a few come undone down there and splits in the peloton. It's nothing like that. It's a lot more straightforward, so nothing for the peloton to worry about. This group, they're getting ever closer to the foot of the climb, and the gap is growing almost out to 40 seconds.
Here he is, Izagirre from Astana, rolling through. He is adapting or approaching this with the Rui Costa strategy. Just enough to keep everybody happy. He's sure to attack on the final climb.
I think so. Out of that group, he's a man who really needs to attack this group with the likes of Trentin and Van Avermaet in it. And this is what remains off the front of the breakaway group. Originally 33 riders, now 11 off the front.
It's down to 10 now, in fact, because Alexis Gujart is now being dropped. It would be incredible if he was able to return to this group. But now the chasers, they're out to 39 seconds. 39 seconds is a lot of ground to make up when you've been in this break all day long.
Yeah, it's a lot of ground to make up. There is a 5-kilometre climb. Maybe Thomas de Kent will think, I'll have a go at it on the climb. But there's got to be others in this group that think they need to get away before it. Maybe a Daniel Oss, that's what he's thinking about. Tom Scully just be offloaded. Got to at least try something.
We've had Kiwis win stages in the Tour de France in the team time trial, but never an individual stage. This could be an historic moment for New Zealand cycling.
This is Ben King.
Tom Scully has himself in second position behind King. The reaction is coming from Trentin.
And he's just going to try and cover everything. Just keep it together.
The grimace on the face of Greg Van Avermaet as he follows the wheel of Casper Asgreen. Trentin is showing some cards early.
He won't be intent on getting into a group and start swapping off to form another split. He just prefer everything just to stay together. That will be just fine for Matteo Trentin.
37 seconds now. The gap reduces ever so slightly to the chasers. I'd like to see exactly what's happening back with the chasing group.
Swing across the road and Ben King, well, he has a look and then gets up on the pedals and goes. It's Van Avermaet who tracks him. Asgreen, he also sees the danger.
Trentin the same. He responds, number 107.
Not only
Asgreen, counter-attack, over the top. The youngest rider in the leading group, and he puts them all under pressure.
Well, they are very close now to the foot of the climb. This is a big effort. Climb is just a little way down the road. That was a soigneur for Dylan Teuns stepping out of the road, but sorry, he's not there yet. He's missed the split.
And he's creating a sprint. Tom Scully now in the pink colours. The bow of the head is never a good sign. Tom Scully, you can cross him off. Ben King as well, he's been distanced. But Asgreen is the one who is eliminating the chances.
Langen also gone out of this group. Perichon, he will not get across. Trentin says this is great. Let's keep it rolling. The men not to miss out. Asgreen, Van Avermaet, Izagirre and Tom Scoins.
Daniel Oss with the flowing locks. We're asked about the aerodynamics of Daniel Oss. He loves his hair. He sits at the back of the group. It's part of his branding, Daniel Oss. It makes it easy for us to spot him. He's the rider at the rear of the group.
Trentin, he's eager for this to keep moving along. We got rid of a lot of guys and always talking, always pushing. Come on, guys, let's keep it going. Roll it over, almost at the bottom of the climb. And Izagirre, he has got to be the man who will attack. He can't wait till just near the top.
After the showers that we had, the dripping that you see in that musette bag from Michael Hepburn, that's the stockings full of ice to take them through to the team leaders. As one of his teammates, Matteo Trentin, he's not waiting for the sprint. He's showing his strength. The cards are on the table.
Well, followed all the moves, and he's obviously thought to himself, it's just not moving quick enough. Maybe they're too tired. Off I go.
Reaction now coming from Pierre-Luc Perichon.
As Trentin is on to the climb, the Col de la Sentinelle, 5.2 kilometres, 5.4% average.
And he is a strong time trialist, Matteo Trentin. There's real pause back in this group. Who's going to do the work? They cannot.
Wants to do a big turn for the rest as they get to the foot of the climb. Could be a master stroke by Trentin. Perichon, he was dropped when Trentin was one of the ones making an acceleration. He surely won't ride across the Italian.
No, he's looking over his shoulder. He's looking for the chasers. The race is out in front. Pierre-Luc Perichon, second on the road. Matteo Trentin is all by himself.
An adjustment of the jury or just a silent prayer. He's off the front solo, and that is a big gap to cross.
Chasing group being led by Tom Scoins. It's then Greg Van Avermaet in orange. This is Pierre-Luc Perichon of Cofidis. Looking to end an 11-year drought for this team. Is he making any progress? Not yet. This is Trentin. And he's the rider that I would have backed in the sprint finish from that group.
Trentin, fastest man in the group, the one the others don't want to go to the finish with, want to offload him, attack him, use him up. He'll have none of it. He'll leave him behind first.
Impressive. He was fourth at the World Championships in 2017, Matteo Trentin. He's won multiple stages here at the Tour, 4 at the Volta di Spagna and 1 at the Giro d'Italia. He's already opened up a 13-second advantage, make it 15 seconds on Pierre-Luc Perichon.
Well, he won stages here at the Tour successive years, 2013 and 2014. In 13, he beat Albacini in a photo finish. And then the next year, he won into Nancy from an elite front group after a difficult hilly stage, coming in ahead of Peter Sagan.
And at that point, he was riding with the Quick-Step team. Omega Pharma Quick-Step, it was then known, now known as the Koenig Quick-Step. He's got the jersey fully open, 37 degrees still at the finish line in gap, 4.2 kilometres to the top of the climb. This is the pursuer, this is Perichon.
And this is good news for Trentin, that Perichon is still in between. A man who was dropped when the race went a bit faster.
And he's at 17 seconds, 26 seconds to the next chasing group. And Perichon keeps looking over the shoulder. This could be it. Trentin has laid the winning move.
Maybe a lot won't consider this going out on a limb. I'm calling it. Trentin will not be caught. He has looked so fresh. He's been all over every move. He's been attent. He's been strong. He's covered attacks. Now he's made his own. He's been so eager in the moves as well to do the work, to get everybody moving. It's like he's on a big adrenaline rush. Surely they can't catch him. The gap has opened up even more.
He's not showing any signs of slowing down, Matteo Trentin. He was interviewed before the start of the stage. No pressure on the team. You've already got 3 stage victories. Yeah, but I haven't yet.
Prophetic words by the Italian, the man who is the European road race champion. And from his team, Mitchelton Scott, just as you said, one of the men with 2 stage wins in this race, Simon Yates. He sits at the back of the peloton, having a relaxing day, and I'm sure following the progress updates of his teammate off the front. This is a Pic de Bure.
It's the 3rd highest peak in this region at 2,709 metres above sea level.
Cooling off for Matteo Trentin. He's feeling the heat, but it's not from the chase because they are going further behind. Perichon at 23. The rest of the pursuers at 33 seconds. That's the group with Izagirre and Van Avermaet.
And how discouraging for that chasing group now at 33 seconds when they've seen the strength of Matteo Trentin. It's Os on the front, followed by Asgreen, then Izagirre, Scoins, and at the back, Van Avermaet. They don't look like a group who will close down a Matteo Trentin.
These are not tactical decisions. That is the best they had. This is the best they've got. The strongest man is going to win this bike race. Plain and simple.
Matteo Trentin off the fronts. He's got it all in front of him with just on 11.5 kilometres remaining. It's 23 seconds now for Perichon. Pierre-Luc Perichon is putting up a good fight.
Yep, dangling 13 seconds in front of the group that he caught right before the foot of the climb. He went up and over as they took a pause, and he's still holding them off. He's 15 seconds ahead of that group with Van Avermaet.
And he looked cooked at that point, but he's really bounced back well.
At the moment, he's hanging on to this time gap. He's not losing any more at the moment. That time gap actually having him come in by 1 second on Matteo Trentin, but he still can't see him. 22 seconds is a big gap.
This is his 4th appearance at the Tour de France for Pierre-Luc Perichon. He's never won a stage in the Tour, nor a World Tour level race, but he has won a good race if you like your cheese. He has been a winner of Paris-Camembert.
Where you win your weight in?
Camembert. He won that back in 2012. This is Os, followed by Van Avermaet. They're trying to work. You're right in your assessment. It's not so much that it's tactical, just this is all that's left in the tank. It is stage 17. They've been racing throughout the Tour now for more than 2,500 kilometres.
And the gap is growing. And Matteo Trentin, his virtual finish line is the top of this climb at 8.5 kilometres to go. It's pretty much all downhill into gap, just a couple of little pinches a few hundred metres long. But he knows if he can have 20 seconds at the top of this climb, they will not see him.
This is the next group on the road. These are the remnants. This includes Edvald Bosenhagen. Also in this group is Ben King. Simon Clark is there in the pink colours. Dylan Toynes is at the rear of the group. Just in front of him is Bolka Mollema. Third last from that group is Nico Roche.
This is Langen at the front of this group, trying to drive them back on. Simon Clark, he's in 4th last of the group.
Just in front
Roche
of him
behind him.
Is that Henao?
Yep.
Former Colombian national champion, Sergio Henao. And the gap to the peloton out to 18.5 minutes.
Just over 2 kilometres from the top.
This group looks like it'll be caught by the group that is chasing them down, and then they'll get the news, oh, but hang on, Matteo Trentin, he's still another 40 seconds up the road.
There's a big dive down into gap.
Gorka Izagirre. Now the attack comes from Kasper Asgreen. And nobody with the legs to go with him. The young Dane has proven to be a powerhouse in 2019. One of the revelations of last year's Volta a España. Confirmation this season.
But if he's able to accelerate like that right away from this group and distance them, he's waited too long. He should have done that before if he really did have it in the legs. He's onto that little flatter section now as well.
41 seconds, the gap at the moment. Kasper Asgreen made the move. He might be able to take 5 or so seconds away really quickly with the acceleration, but then once it gets into the stabilisation, Trentin's not backing off. He's not slowing down. He's showing no signs of weakness.
And he's 500 metres from the top of this climb. The gradient a lot easier. He will power across the top of the Col de Sentinelle above gap, and it'll be a lightning fast descent. It's a pedalling descent, so it's not as steep as, say, a Pyrenean or an Alpine descent. It's certainly quick, open and flowing.
Asgreen pretty quickly across to Perichon. He will make contact with the Frenchman by the time they reach the top.
It's been a good acceleration by Asgreen, and he may live to regret that he didn't try this earlier.
It's not over yet, Robbie.
Okay, but it is.
Not quite.
They will not catch Trentin, surely not. Too much experience, too much fight. You could see this morning in his interview how much he wanted it. Popped himself into the break, and the way he's ridden it all day long, the only thing that surely that could stop him is a mistake.
Yeah, I'm 99% with you. But Kasper Asgreen is a guy who has surprised more than once this season.
Asgreen up and over the top of Pierre-Luc Perichon, tries to tack himself onto the wheel, and he does it at the moment. No, the gap opening up, the Dane pushes on, the Frenchman is being dropped.
The moment was momentary because number 22 is on the charge. It's the young Dane, Kasper Asgreen, still holding out a glimmer of hope of being able to get across to Matteo Trentin.
Well, the kilometres are going to tick away very quickly now. If it was this gap and a flat or undulating run into the finish, you'd say still a chance. He's not home yet, but he's got a lot of descending to do. Right the way to the final kilometre, there's only 2 sections of about 400 metres. We'll be up onto the pedals, big chainring as well. And the little kick up from 2 kilometres to go, you really dive into a dip, carry a lot of speed onto it. So Trentin just has to hold it together, keep his concentration is the most important thing now on this descent. Get your markers from the motorbike and the car in front of you, estimate the corners, take just enough risk, but he's got a gap that he can be careful enough.
I'm glad you declared this is a non-technical descent.
it opens up even more further down. It's not hairpins. You can take most of these corners with just a brush of the brakes.
Just a brush of the brakes, so he says. At the top of the climb, Trentin's lead on Asgreen was 26 seconds. At the point where Casper Asgreen attacked, the gap was 41 seconds.
And it might be 10 at the finish, but Trentin will have time to sit up and celebrate.
This is the chase, Casper Asgreen. Trentin is a very good descender. He's
a very good descender. As much as I'd like to keep the excitement in it for commentary purposes, but I'm not going to, because Trentin is just too good to give this away.
This is Pierre-Luc Perichon fighting for a top 3 finish on the stage. He's trying to hold off the group with Greg Van Avermaet. And now it's gone out to 29 seconds. So Trentin actually is riding away from Casper Asgreen on the descent.
He's a good descender, just has to hold it together. Shades of last year, Adam Yates off the front on the way to Bagnères-de-Luchon with Julien Alaphilippe on the chase. He fell in the corner. We don't wish it on him, but these are the things you need to keep in mind, and that's why you need to stay 100% focused, even with a comfortable lead.
And Yates, Mitchelton Scott, Trentin, Mitchelton Scott, Asgreen, quick step, Alaphilippe, quick step. Shades indeed.
That's why it all came together. Flatter part of the descent, so the further you go down, the less gradient there is. Back onto the power for Trentin. Line up that car in front, see what sort of curve there is in front of you. Ease off slightly, back on it again.
He looks so powerful, Matteo Trentin, the European road champion. He's won sprint finishes in this tour before, one from a breakaway group, another one getting the better of Peter Sagan. Now Casper Asgreen, it's heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, both Matteo Trentin's Tour de France wins have been in group sprints. The one in Nancy in 2014, quite a large group sprint. The other one in 2013, a smaller breakaway group like this one, with about 15 or 16 guys left, and just got over the top of Albacini. Well, he's making sure of this one. Just the strongest man in the group on the day. In the end, when you look at it, he's ridden away and simply outpowered them. He was all over everything, didn't miss a beat, not a single mistake, and he's the strongest.
That 1% hope that I was holding out for Casper Asgreen has just evaporated underneath the sun into gap as it goes to 31 seconds.
Yeah, the time gap's going out. This is that little uphill section through 5 kilometres to go. It goes for a few 100 metres, and it definitely stings the end of a 200-kilometre extremely hot day. Stage 17 of the Tour de France. It is hurting like the proverbial, but Trentin, he can smell the stage wind.
It hurts a little less when you're in front and the time gap is going in your favour. But this is another brave performance by Casper Asgreen.
He holds 8 seconds over Pierre-Luc Perichon. It's a further 8 seconds back to the group of Van Avermaet, which has swelled in number with riders joining them from the chasing group behind. The breakaway, it absolutely fell to pieces. And Matteo Trentin has been responsible for a lot of the damage. This is Bauke Mollema with Gorka Izagirre.
Trying to go across. In March of last year, Asgreen was still riding with Team Virtue Cycling, a continental team, down in the 3rd division of the sport. And he got picked up by De Koning Quick-Step, and now the 24-year-old Dane finds himself in with a chance to finish second on a stage of the Tour de France. He was second this year at the Tour of Flanders, a stage winner at the Tour of California.
Well, whoever is responsible for that talent ID, well done.
Izagirre, Mollema, then Perichon, Toynes and Van Avermaet contemplating what might have been. They've missed their opportunity.
Yep, the rest, they are way out of contention for this one. This is that downhill stretch down towards 2 kilometres to go for Matteo Trentin. So all downhill till 2K to go. Another kicker up for about 400 metres. But he has a 36-second advantage now. So he's riding away all the time. It'll just be steady state and start to think of what the victory salute's going to be.
Well, he hasn't had much chance in his previous stage victories to really focus on it, as it's been the adrenaline one with a photo finish where he actually had to wait maybe up to 2 minutes for confirmation when he got the better of Michael Albacini.
Yeah, that was super close on that occasion. This time, there'll be no one else on the photo unless he starts to celebrate from a kilometre out and Asgreen comes into sight. Asgreen still only has 10 seconds on the group. They call it the group Van Avermaet, but that was the one we saw Bauke Mollema and Izagirre attacking out of.
Matteo Trentin on target to make it stage win number 4 for Mitchelton Scott.
This last little uphill section, then it's downhill to, oh, he's got the downhill until the 2 kilometre, then a proper kick up. Still to get to that section.
This is Casper Asgreen now drifting out to 38 seconds behind. 8th in the individual time trial. He's the Danish time trial champion, and he has spent countless kilometres on the fronts of the peloton for his team leaders, Alaphilippe and Viviani, but they're closing in on him from behind.
Yeah, they're coming at him, and this man, he is going away from them. This is the peloton coming onto the foot of the climb.
Tony Martin is who leads them onto the front.
There's a bit of a disagreement here, Luke Rowe and Tony Martin. That will be looked at by the race commissaires, that sort of behaviour. And this is the sort of thing that could get Tony Martin thrown off the Tour de France. It's too late to say needs to be careful. It might be too late for him.
I don't know. I'd like to know exactly what happened there and hear from Luke Rowe and Tony Martin.
Well, they're going to have to explain themselves, most certainly Tony Martin, to the race jury if they've seen that footage.
Do you think that was deliberate as opposed to a look across the shoulder and then he
it was
accidentally...
absolutely deliberate. But we just need to know what was the catalyst to that. But the real action is right here.
He's on the way to another stage victory for Mitchelton Scott. About to see the kite with 1 kilometre to go. Matteo Trentin has simply been the strongest. Pat on the back from the yellow jersey. Gratitude for Dries Devenants. 20 minutes and 10 seconds the gap. Still leads. It is followed by Thomas, Kruijswijk, Pinot, Bernal, Boekman, Landa, Valverde, Uran, and then Port rounds out the top 10. More than 80% of this year's Tour de France has been completed. There's just 592 kilometres remaining before the race reaches its finish line in Paris. Yet the big decisions, they're still to be made. And providing the backdrop will build the Alpine climbs. Could it be a French victory? They've got the yellow jersey resting on the shoulders of Julian Alaphilippe, who will get to the top of the mountain first today. The drama of the day yesterday, though, involved Luke Rowe and Tony Martin. On the road approaching the final climb, the battle was on for positions. And it got a little heated.
Pretty harsh decision. I think maybe a yellow card would have been merited, but I think a red card for both riders, in fact, feels a bit severe to me.
Luke, you must be devastated.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest sporting event in the world, and to come here with this team and alongside a bunch of good mates, and just feel like I've let them down. Of course, let myself down, and yeah, it was both trying to do a job. Maybe we both overstepped the mark slightly, but it feels harsh to be thrown off the race. I think neither of us deserve that. And there's just a lot of people supporting you, watching you, and it's pretty hard.
Luke Rowe from Team Ineos and Tony Martin of Jumbo Visma, both disqualified from the race. They're on their way home. In terms of altitude gain, this is the biggest throughout this year's tour. They will scale more than 5,200 metres in altitude gain across 208 kilometres from Embrun through to Valois. And some of the most famous climbs in the sport, the Col de Var, then it's on to the Izoard, then to the giant, the Col de Galibier, at more than 2,600 metres, before a rapid descent through to the finish. Hello, welcome to stage 18 of the Tour de France. Matthew Keenan with you, joined once again by Robbie McEwen. Robbie, the sun is shining at the finish line, but there are a few riders missing. We just saw the package from yesterday involving Luke Rowe and Tony Martin. It will provide a talking point for the next few hours, and then we'll get to the high mountains and we'll switch our focus very much onto the racing itself. But it did take a dramatic turn after yesterday's stage.
It did take a dramatic turn, but as far as I'm concerned, it didn't take an unexpected turn. As soon as I saw the footage and the small part that we saw live during the race, I said they're going to have some questions to answer at the finish, and they certainly did. Then more footage emerged, and even though nobody crashed, the actions that were taken by those two riders, with the look at the precedent set last year of Gianni Moscon being thrown off the Tour for trying to punch someone else, a swing and a miss, they threw him off the race. With that precedent already set, looking at yesterday's events, for me, it seemed pretty close to 100% they were going to be thrown off the race.
And you made that call at the time, and I was sceptical. I didn't think it would be that severe. I did see some more footage, courtesy of the Dutch television, NOS, which shows more prior to what happened when they made that left-hand turn. And in terms of, number one, the risk that they put other riders at, the risk that they put spectators at, and then also the image of the sport, it does look harsh externally. It's not the consequences of those actions, it's the intent of those actions and what could have been caused. I actually think the UCI have made the right decision disqualifying them, even though the people that are in the thick of it, they probably feel like it is a little bit harsh. But I also believe that the UCI should have gone on the front foot and actually made a strong communication about what their decision was, why they made it, and the purpose of doing that big call of disqualifying them from the race.
Yeah, and I think you're right with that call. The UCI just needed to come forward. They don't need to say much. All that needed to be said was, we will not tolerate physical aggression within the race, and we have excluded the two riders. Full stop.
Yeah, there was no need for them to hold a press conference and do a whole Q&A session. They just needed to make a strong statement that shows that they are backing the decision of the jury on the race. And a lot of questions have been asked as to who's the jury. Well, the jury's made up of an international group of representatives. There's Italians on there, there's French on there as well. There's a Canadian on that jury. It's not as if it's a biased decision in favour of the French race leader.
No, it's not in bias to the French race leader, but in effect, the race jury, the UCI commissaires, they are the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and the appeals panel.
This time they executed. So there's.
So I wasn't shocked to see them out of the race, but as we see Le Tour de Brune in Embrun, and we'll get to some of the fantastic scenery. Please enjoy watching that if you're not so into the technicalities behind the race and what's gone on after yesterday.
Just to clarify the jury, the UCI president, or the jury president I should say, is from Italy. Then the members, Canada is represented, France, Spain and Belgium. So there's no bias based on nationalities.
No, it's simply following the rules that are in place. They had the option just to issue a fine and a warning and points deduction and other various things that are meaningless to the riders, really. But they went the whole hog, said out of the race. The race moves on. The teams were planning an appeal, heard nothing of that, but they will not go back. As I said, judge, jury, executioner and appeals panel. They're not going to reverse their own decision. So the riders are lining up for this stage, what is the Queen stage of this Tour de France.
And their fine was 1,000 Swiss francs, Robbie, which is significant,
yeah,
as opposed to
1,001
Swiss francs.
Yeah. So if the fine they got was under 1,000 Swiss francs, it gives you no right of appeal. A fine over 1,000 Swiss francs, you may appeal.
Correct.
Read this fine print. Just got to that bit.
Julian Alaphilippe in the yellow jersey. This is a big day for Julian Alaphilippe.
They've all been big days for Julian Alaphilippe, whether they're flat or hilly. He's made something big. Just the fact that he's still in the jersey day after day. It's huge.
They roll out from Embrun, which in 2008, this beautiful little town in the Alps hosted the start of two stages of the Tour de France. One of them finished in Italy at Prato Nervoso. That was won in pouring rain from a breakaway group by Simon Gerrans. The following day, it was a stage that went through to Alpe d'Huez, or a few days later, it was a stage that went through to Alpe d'Huez. And it was Carlos Sastre who won the stage with a bold breakaway in the blazing sun. And we're expecting a bit of both today. It's warm at the moment, but the forecast is for potential showers and maybe even thunderstorms later in the afternoon.
I was just thinking while you were telling that story about 2008, I was there, I rode it, and I don't remember being in Embrun. Must have been at the hard end of the tour. But weather forecast-wise, so at Valois, where the race finishes after they crest the Galibier and dive down into Valois, chance of thunderstorms from 3 o'clock this afternoon. The race is not due to finish until 5 p.m. So it's a 50-50 whether the storms will hit here, but there will be thunderstorms in the Alps this afternoon. So the riders have just got to be lucky that it doesn't hit on the course. Yesterday, I'm sure they really would have enjoyed that heavy downpour at one stage. It was 38 degrees, and then it started pouring rain. It would have been like having a swim. They would have felt that was really nice.
Mickey Shah, who was in the breakaway, he did an interview immediately after the stage, and he said, that's the first time I've rejoiced rain when I'm in a bike race.
Well, we saw as the raindrops started to come down, we saw riders look at each other and smile and laugh and think, how good is this?
It's great, wasn't it?
Never seen that before.
What a gorgeous town, the way it's perched up on this rock. It sits at around about 1,000 metres or so above sea level, this little town. And I really like the look of that football pitch and the little athletics track that went around the outside of it. What a picturesque place that would be for a game of football.
First, they stay up on top for just a couple of kilometres before they really drop down. So gradually down, they're about to drop onto the real descent.
Hand signal there from Lutsenko, I'd suggest indicating to Perrichon, let's keep rolling and wait and see who comes across to us.
Yeah.
They won't survive as just two riders out in front, but there's sure to be a counter-attack coming from that peloton. Lars Bak, the first rider to attack, has rejoined the rear end of the peloton. Survival for Lars.
There's always that choice you have to make in the position of a non-climber. Do I attack and hope they just let me go, get in a group and get a head start? Or just sit back, relax, stay as fresh as possible to try and hang on? And it's a terrible feeling when you've made that attack. You've hurt your legs and it doesn't work.
Well, Lutsenko at this point, he's trying not to hurt his legs too much. He keeps looking over the shoulder to see what's developing from the peloton. And the bad news for Alexei Lutsenko in the white colours from Astana is that it's the whole peloton closing down.
Yeah, the danger for these two is that they'll be down the descent. The peloton will be bearing down on them. Just weight of numbers rolling over the top of each other. One rider's trying to sprint his way across. When we get back down onto the flatter roads, I think the attacks will just continue out of the peloton, and it'll probably just eat up those two in front. We'll see a whole new break form. The gap's still small.
It is still small. Yesterday when we drove up the final climb, the Lauterre onto the Col de Galibier, it was a headwind. The forecast today is for that portion of the climb to be a tailwind. How does that impact on the way the race is ridden?
It's going to be faster, of course. It's better for the pure climbers. Nobody can sit and slipstream behind them. As we see Le Fort Joubert and Saint-Vincent-les-Forts.
This is also called the Saint-Vincent Fort. Then it took up the name of Joubert. It was built in 1692 at the request of Vauban. It was never attacked because of its strategic position. It was a little bit difficult to get to. Listed as a French historical monument, that was as of 1994. And that construction work that you can see being done there, that's by the people who currently own it. It is a private residence.
So a much more modern section of building right there in the middle. And what a view. Tough home to return to if you're a bike rider.
Do you think you'd leave the car at the bottom of the hill occasionally?
Absolutely.
Still no official breakaway being formed at the front. Remnants of an old tower. Good lookout post, no doubt, as a defensive mechanism throughout the Middle Ages.
And this is what so many people love about these alpine stages. The views are just incredible. The scenery is stunning. And the racing is going to be red hot as well later on in the stage for our GC contenders. And if a break can open up a big gap, we may get treated to 2 races for 1.
For the guys that are inside the top 10 overall, particularly those that are inside the top 6 and within striking distance of the yellow jersey, we've already spoken about the sprinters wanting the break to get established and the race to settle down. assuming they'd be in a similar position. Particularly Julian Alaphilippe. Perhaps there's others in there that want the race to stay hard, so it softens the legs of Julian Alaphilippe. But if it can settle down sooner, that is better for the yellow jersey.
It's better for the yellow jersey, but some of the others, they may prefer it just to be aggressive all day long, really hard racing. And a guy like Thibaut Pinot, who showed in the Pyrenees that he seemed to have the best legs, he may prefer it just to be that bit harder all day long, racing really kick off in earnest, maybe already on the Col d'Izoard, the second big climb of the day. It starts at around kilometre 117 into the race. So with 90 kilometres to go.
And we have seen Thibaut Pinot on the previous stages, in the Pyrenees in particular, where he has used his team early to make the race hard, to try and soften the legs of the yellow jersey. So today, for now at least, it's not his team that needs to do it. It's the rest of the peloton trying to do so as they aim to get themselves into the breakaway, playing into the hands of Thibaut Pinot. Peloton still strung out single file at 10, 11 seconds behind the breakaway group of 2.
Another look over the Lac Serpenson. They race along the shores of the lake, in this case still high above them but very close to the lake's edge, for the first nearly 30 kilometres of this race before they leave the shores. Then it's on towards the sprint of the day in Le Tuile.
Still just at 11 seconds for Perichon and Lutsenko. Reaction coming from the peloton, amongst them the green jersey Peter Sagan. He already has a very significant lead in the race for that green jersey, but the intermediate sprint, no doubt, will be to his liking. This is Perichon at the front. 8th on the stage yesterday. I thought it was a really good performance by Pierre-Luc Perichon yesterday. Stunning place for a ride. If you could just organise a tailwind down through this valley and along the lake, that'd be lovely. A large portion of the convoy of the Tour de France drove along this route yesterday as they made their way from yesterday's stage finish through to the finish line in Valois this afternoon. As for the media compound, that's divided in 2 sections. The commentary crew and most of the TV production, we're all based down in Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne, or Saint-Michel-de-Maurienne. Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne is just nearby. There's been stage finishes of the Tour there before, but we're in Saint-Michel-de-Maurienne, where there was a stage finish of the Tour de France, the Criterium du Dauphiné earlier on this year. This is Lutsenko.
And now even further, say 16 days into the Tour, absolutely eating their words with Soudal Lotto with 3 stage wins, 2 weeks in the polka dot jersey with Tim Wellens. They're riding a fantastic Tour.
3 appearances on the podium for most combative. They managed to win 2 stages at the Giro d'Italia. That's not a bad Giro. They're harsh critics.
It's not. They were maybe out of ideas for decent stories. So they thought, let's do that one, because they're underperforming compared to De Koenig Quickstep, who operate with a much larger budget, have a really broad team of star riders, and you shouldn't compare the two on that front, but they're always going to, because they're both Belgian teams. But Soudal Lotto have really shown that they're worth every cent.
Yeah, it's a good return on investment for the sponsors. We spent a lot of time talking about them because they're either in the breakaways or in a position to set it up for their sprinter, Caleb Ewan.
And in Belgium, the National Lottery and the people who decide how much money goes to different sports and sponsorships and causes and charities and cultural events, all that sort of stuff, they say this is not just a sports sponsorship, this is cultural. In Belgium, cycling is a huge part of the psyche of the people, of the culture of the nation.
What about the fact that there's a larger proportion of people that you would classify as the underdog that buy lottery tickets, and for the Soudal Lotto team to have that tag as the underdog, it's a pretty consistent branding.
Yep, correct. Chris Jules Jensen from Mitchelton Scott got himself off the front again with Roscoff
And Daniel
Oss. So men that we've seen on the attack in the last days.
You'll never guess who's trying to come across. Peter Sagan.
And the peloton completely strung out at this point. And still that little gap, it hasn't quite got closed yet of that chasing group who were dropped on the Category 3. They will close it up, but it's taking a lot of effort.
They've already gone over a Category 3 climb, and it was gradually uphill just to get to the base of it. And the average speed so far after 38 minutes of racing is 43 kilometres per hour. This is Chris Jules Jensen. He was in the breakaway yesterday. Michael Matthews in the red colours of Sunweb once again.
Where Sagan goes, Matthews goes. Roman Sicard. It looks
Lilian
like
Calmejean. And here comes yesterday's winner, Matteo Trentin, with Jack Haig. This is Matteo Trentin not trying to get himself into the breakaway. This is Matteo Trentin trying to get the rider behind him, Jack Haig, into the move.
This is such good teamwork. You saw the look over the shoulder in the wheel. Follow me around the group. We're going to keep going. I'm going to launch you up the road. And Jack Haig, he was having some real trouble following. Now, 3 teammates in this group. Jules Jensen, he sees it. He goes again as well.
And Trentin swings off. He's out of the way. He was into the red zone to get Jack Haig across.
You've heard of sprint lead-outs. That's an attack lead-out.
That was brilliant. Lutsenko, Perichon struggling to follow. This is the intensity with still 178 kilometres to go. They haven't even started the tough stuff.
Now, this is where they need these riders to break the elastic. But look, it's all come back together behind. So even a huge move like that, such as the intensity in the group and the intent to get in the breakaway as well, they're just not able to shake the field.
That was Jack Haig. Just did they please, please, please to the side of the road. That was a Soignier from UAE Emirates. And they said, yep, okay. Nice. Lutsenko now going by himself. Perichon figures, I can't hang out with you all day. This is a little tough.
Oh, especially after yesterday in the break for Perichon, a really long day out in the heat. Tried really hard, was in second position coming to the top of the Col de Sentinelle, the last climb of the day. Passed by Asgreen just before the top and eventually caught by the chasing group as well. Came across the line in 8th.
It was a really good ride. This is Perichon, the rider that Robbie was just speaking about, now being soaked up by the peloton that's led by Joey Roscoff. Kreuziger in 3rd position with the green helmet on. He's not too badly placed overall, Roman Kreuziger. He sits in 15th position at 12 minutes and 6 seconds down. If he goes into the break, that starts to threaten guys that are inside the top 10.
Well, he believes himself that he's flying under the radar. Nobody's going to pay attention to me if I get up the road. And once I'm up there, it'll be too late. And they'll say, well, we'll have to sort that one out later. But if he can get himself up there, that could be a stepping stone towards the top 10 for Kreuziger.
He has finished in the top 10 in the past.
As we race up Le Vallée de l'Ubaye. Here, high up in the Haute-Alpes and heading towards the monster climbs that await on the menu today. Beginning with the Category 1 Col de Var, followed by the Col d'Izoard, and then the famed Col de Galibier.
Famed and feared.
Famous and infamous.
Yeah. That brilliant stage victory by Andy Schleck in the 2011 Tour de France is etched in my memory. This is Steve Cummings at the back of the group. This is Bilbao now at the front for Astana, who looks really uncomfortable.
Yeah, he has that bouncing style, but it's effective.
He's a good climber, and he's followed by Mikhail Kwiatkowski. So again, Robbie, we're seeing Ineos on the front foot.
Maybe doing a Movistar. We often see them put a rider in the break, get them up the road, and then they function as the perfect teammate later on in the stage.
On Lutsenko, did you see that reaction? Look over the shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, guys.
Why don't you just attack and come across instead of just riding across all in the wheel? Thanks very much. It's one of his team. Well, that's why he's waving at his teammate. What on earth are you doing? Bilbao got the message, but it's too late.
Yeah, it is.
Yates again on the outside coming. Impey up here as well. Yates had a little look around and then decided, no, it's still moving too quickly. I'll wait. I'll save it.
Lutsenko presses on. He wants the break to come to him, not the whole peloton. But unfortunately for Alexei Lutsenko, he's about to be reeled back in. And he'll pay a price at some point for all this work that he's done on his own.
Big turn here from Daryl Impey on the front, the South African national champion, and there is the split now. So we've seen Mitchelton Scott, they're trying to launch their riders into the move. And it comes a point where maybe riders don't have that freshness, that punch to sprint their way into a breakaway. So you just get someone on the front who's incredibly strong, wind it up, get going so fast that eventually someone pops and the gap opens up.
And a gap has opened up.
Exactly what Impey has done.
They're riding with so much confidence. It's Yates now at the front, followed then by Kwiatkowski. Impey in third position. It would be an injustice if Alexei Lutsenko did not make the winning breakaway today. If indeed the breakaway does win. But if he doesn't make the break of the day.
Yeah, at least to get into the break of the day and give yourself a fighting chance. Not giving up behind, though, because it's Movistar who are chasing the gap. A lot of looking over the shoulders to see if it's splitting behind them. But it's not. The peloton all intact in the chase.
This is a non-climber's nightmare at the start to this stage.
More riders trying to attack their way across out of the peloton.
This is Roger Klug at the back for Lotto Soudal.
So you'd assume Caleb Ewan is also here in the group.
He always sticks with Caleb, whether it is for the sprint lead out or to survive the mountains. Max Richesi is responding in the white colours, the Argentinian national champion. The pink coming across with the bandage on, that is the Canadian, that is Michael Woods. As we look at the South African national champion, Daryl Impey really forcing the tempo.
Mollema now into the wheel, everybody coming across, so that shuts this group down. Impey pushing on.
Because he has Yates with him.
Everybody just has a pause.
He's got Yates with him, who they believe can win again. They've got Wout calmly working his way back through that convoy of cars. This is going to be a desperate chase for Caleb Ewan before starting a Category 1 climb.
They're pushing on at the front, but surely this group is too large now to survive. There's going to have to be a counter-attack come out of this group.
Well, Kelmerjan has made it. So Total Direct Energy, after doing all the chasing yesterday, they're in the group. Romain Bardet is here for the AG2R Le Mondial team. First up, this is his teammate, Matthias Frank, and then it is Bardet.
Just trying to identify the Movistar rider there. I thought for a second maybe Nairo Quintana.
Quintana is 12th overall. He sits at 9 minutes and 30 seconds.
Let's get another
It is
glimpse.
Nairo Quintana. Good pick from the helicopter. Quintana in the breakaway for Movistar. Bardet is here. This is Serge, that's not Serge Pulse. This is Wout Puls, who's at the back. He's now made contact with the rear end of the peloton.
Safely back onto the back of the peloton, and we hope the same for Caleb Ewan soon, who had to spend a lot more time on the side of the road to get his bike sorted out and looked like he was waiting for a new machine. So there's going to be a terribly tough chase to get back onto a peloton that is riding like this.
Well, it's 33 riders in the breakaway yesterday. It looks like it's 33 riders in the breakaway again today.
33 is the magic number.
It is. De La Soul thought it was 3, but it's 33. Daryl Impey in that group has been one of the driving forces. AG2R Le Mondial, they're well represented. They have 3 riders in the breakaway, Bardet, Chirel, and also Matthias Frank. This is Chris Juul Jensen, 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. He's not worried about the sprint. He is just driving the tempo to get this breakaway off the fronts.
Yep, there might be 33 riders in it. They're thinking about one man, and that's Adam Yates, having him in the break. But also now having Bardet, but even more so Nairo Quintana. This is turning into being a very dangerous move.
In second position in this group is the first yellow jersey wearer of this year's tour. It's Mike Turnison. But they've only been given 18 seconds, so this has really caught the attention of the rest of the peloton.
I wouldn't even say they've been given.
No, they've stolen.
Taken 18 seconds, and now the peloton is going to have to claw it back. They can't let Nairo Quintana ride off in a group like this one, and surely the pressure has now got to come on De Koning Quickstep, but also to a certain extent Jumbo-Visma, although Turnison just went through and did a turn for Steven Kruijswijk. Here's the sprint.
Pressure on. And at the fronts, in the sprint, collecting the points with just a little nod of their head.
This is Jasper de Burst. So he didn't wait for Caleb Ewan, it was someone else.
Followed by Kamna, and then it's Van Avermaet in third position.
Here comes the peloton in the background. Nairo Quintana coming through in fourth wheel of the rest of this group, behind those who sprinted for the points. And the peloton now led by Jasper Stuyven at this point.
He missed the
Elio
yellow
Viviani.
helmet. Stuyven missed the yellow helmet for Trek Segafredo as the leaders of the team's classification. He's on the front.
And that's not for points.
No.
They are all gone. This is to ride for Richie Port's 10th place overall.
Because Quintana's in the group in 12th position.
They cannot let it go.
This is De Boost, followed by Kamna, and then Van Avermaet for the second day in the breakaway. Called Nikias Arts.
In other words, let it build up and wait for the really high altitude tomorrow, the highest point of this Tour de France, the Col de l'Isère. And up until that point, it is all climbing.
It's a relatively short
stage.
It's only 126 kilometres tomorrow, but if you can find me a more difficult 126 kilometres in the history of the Tour de France, you'd be doing well. It is
pretty
uphill.
much. The first 89 kilometres is uphill. The section from 75 kilometres through to 89 is an all-category climb, the Col d'Isère. But up until there, there's a couple of very short downhills on the way up, but it's always dragging up.
In that first 89 kilometres, I estimate there's maybe 6 or 7 kilometres worth of descending, and then it's either false flat or slightly uphill.
Well, in the first 75 kilometres, they go up 1,400 metres in elevation without any real climbs. There's a Cat 3, a Cat 2, a Cat 3. They're merely bumps in comparison on the profile to the Col de l'Isère.
This is Pierre-Luc Perrichon at the front for Cofidis. Followed then by Damiano Caruso from Bahrain Merida. Next in line is Romain Bardet.
But you know what, even looking at tomorrow's profile, and as hilly as it is, it's only 126 kilometres, can be ridden as a really aggressive stage. I don't think it's going to be the most decisive for seeing who's going to win the GC. I think they're bringing it down to the last mountain stage of this Tour de France on Saturday, to Val Thorens.
The advantage for the breakaway, which is 34 riders strong, it's out to almost 6 minutes. Mikkel Mørkøv, Kasper Asgreen and Yves Lampaert are the 3 riders for De Koning Quick-Step who are doing the pacemaking at the front. It's Nice Soigneurs on the side of the road with fresh water bottles before they go across the top of the climb. Mathieu Ladenu collects for Groupama FDJ. Tish Benoot still the rider at the front. This is Simon Geschke in the orange colours. Just in front of him is Emile Monard. He's not interested in the water bottle at this point. He's just interested in the top of the climb, the final few hundred metres. You're right about the time gap with Tish Benoot on the front. It's moving towards the 6:40 mark quickly.
Still 700 metres from the top, and they will keep increasing the pace all the way through. Benoot takes a look back over the shoulder and sees that he is splitting the group as well.
And that's not such a bad thing, aiming for the stage victory, to get rid of any of the passengers. Still a long way to go, but it's a group of 34. You can afford to cut this group in half.
You can, but you don't have to worry about the guys who are being distanced now. They're not your worry for later on. It's the men like Lutsenko and Quintana, the ones that are easily following the tempo at the moment, thinking, this is great, keep up the good work, boys. It looks like maybe this tempo has started to be matched back in the peloton.
We might see different colours at the front of the peloton, perhaps. Maybe no longer Yves Lampaert, or has he got more in the tank to up the tempo? It's still Benoot at the front. Quintana showing a little bit of interest here in the Movistar colours.
And maybe Bardet as well. And they know there's so many points on offer coming up.
Bardet did sprint when he was in the breakaway a couple of days ago. That's Bardet that sits behind Jesper de Boost. He's 4th in line. Then it's Lutsenko, and at the rear of that little split is Nairo Quintana. Tish Benoot keeps on applying the pressure. Wellens, he's got his nose in the wind, checks across the shoulder. Bardet is the one who he's wary of. Tactically, he's very astute, Tim Wellens. Bardet wants the points. Wellens is leaving that left-hand side of the road open, teasing Bardet to go there. He'd be able to close the gate if he needs to, but Wellens has got too much horsepower for the Frenchman. 10 more points for Wellens. Second place it is for Bardet.
Tactically astute, Tim Wellens, as you said, leaving the door open, saying, come on this side.
And the Soignier for Soudal Lotto after the top of the climb. The other teams, it was before the top of the climb.
Oh, it was something I always said to the Soigneurs, please don't try and give me extra weight before the top of a climb. Much prefer to get it over the top. There's some of the riders been distanced. Simon Geschke, that is a surprise, but he has already been active in this tour and maybe just through the best of his powers so far. Niels Pollitt, the other German just behind him. Amael Moinard, the man wearing 217 from Arkea Samsic. They're giving themselves a little bit of a chase to get back onto this group, but they should be able to make contact again. Back to the peloton, and that line at the front just that little bit longer. And that time gap sticking at 6:30, so the pace has increased to match that acceleration of Tiesj Benoot.
Wellens trying to stay cool, collecting 10 more points in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. I would like a look back at that peloton to see whether or not it is still Yves Lampaert who is setting the tempo. And if it is, if he's able to up the ante to match the pace that was increasing at the front of that breakaway group, that is really worthy a tip of the hat. 6:33, the advantage for the leading group. That's 2 climbs down. The 2 easy ones. A Category 3 climb, a Category 1 climb. The 2 hard ones are still to come. The next 2 climbs, both of them take them well over 2,000 metres in altitude. The first of them is the Col d'Izoard.
14.1 kilometres long, an average gradient of 7.3%, and the steepest gradients in the second half of the climb. A lot of that black zone.
What point will they do that? Or are they not too worried about Nairo Quintana based on what he has shown so far in this year's tour? Because Ineos won't ride to defend 2nd or 3rd overall. Confirmation of Wellens collecting maximum points at the top of the Col d'Izoard. There's no point Ineos, the team that has won the tour so many times, 4 times with Froome, once with Wiggins and once with Thomas. Seconds of no interest to them. They might take the risk of leaving Nairo Quintana out there.
I think at the moment they're happy enough to gamble with the situation, even if it drifts out a little bit more, but then make the race hard on the last 2 climbs. So on the Izoard, that is a place where they can really do some damage to Julian Alaphilippe and then smash the race apart on the Galibier. I think they'll just be wary about going too early today. I think they're going to save it till the last one because it's the first of the big 3. The final few days of the tour, everybody heavily fatigued, so really measuring the efforts as well.
Back with the breakaway. All smiles for number 87. That's the winner of the first stage of the race. And 2 days in yellow, Mike Turnison. 76, Lutsenko was the most determined rider to get into the breakaway today. He was in everything that moved for the first hour or so.
Been incredibly strong to make it into this break. He's in that 2-man break and then pulled back in. Went again in a smaller group with Daryl Impey and Adam Yates. They were pulled back, then went again. He just kept at it till he got in it. But to be able to keep backing up effort after effort and put himself in the break. So really deserving of a good result today, but I wonder how much that has cost him in energy to get himself in here. And then with some pure climbers in the group that should be able to outgun him on the big climbs.
Chris Juul Jensen, he thinks that one of his teammates in this group has those legs, Adam Yates.
And maybe now using Chris Juul Jensen, set the pace on the descent, the next valley, get to the Izoard, and then his job is done for the day. Still got Daryl Impey in the group here with Adam Yates to try and still set some tempo up the Izoard. And maybe soon, maybe on the next climb, the teammates of Nairo Quintana will start to up the tempo as well with Verona and Amador.
Lampard once again at the front, followed by Casper Asgreen. It's been a huge debut for Casper Asgreen. They do like the tightrope walking in this region. We've seen a bit of it over the last few days.
Well, this gentleman, he's managed to hang on longer than the one we saw yesterday or the day before. As soon as the camera got on him, he took a tumble.
I thought what have really caught your attention was the pump track that you saw.
That's what I was looking at. After I got into the explanation, I stopped watching him. I was looking at the little pump track. Great fun for the kids. Great skills. Great fun for the big kids.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, we've had a crash. One of the Movistar riders off the road. Not completely off.
Verona.
Amador. It's not
Carlos
Amador.
Verona.
Yeah, it's not Amador because it's 68. Yeah,
it's Carlos Verona.
So that's up in the break. One of the teammates of Nairo Quintana. Small mistake. He's only just sort of gone down. Still had his left foot clipped in. So he's gotten away with it. Just wide in the turn.
Not the only rider to crash today. We saw two riders crash simultaneously, synchronised style. On the left-hand side of the road very early on in the stage, Caleb Ewan was one of them, and Wout Poels from Ineos was the other. Both of them picked themselves up pretty quickly. They landed on the soft side into the ditch with the grass. It was a bit of a chase for Caleb Ewan because he had more of a mechanical problem that he had to recover from than Wout Poels, but they're both back here in the main field. 7 minutes and 17 seconds behind the breakaway as Carlos Verona is into the tuck position and quickly return into this huge group of 34 riders.
Oh, nice quick recovery there for Verona. And this is at the back of the peloton. We're riding in the wheel of Dylan Groenewegen.
Sprinters always prepared to take some big risks on the way down to rejoin the main group.
Oh, risks. He's going down this descent at the same speed he sprints at on the flat.
But through corners.
No problem.
It looks like Anthony Roux just in front of him from Groupama FDJ. He's still just 26 years of age and making the statement that he's never really been strong in the third week of a Grand Tour. But generally, riders in these 3-week races, their best period is from 27, 28 through to about the age of 32. Just as a general rule of thumb, historically, he's in a great spot at the moment. 6th position overall, 2 minutes and 14 seconds down. And he's just on 45, 50 seconds away from second place. He's in a really good spot. And I'd be surprised if he falls outside of the top 10. He'd have to have a disastrous day, and he's shown no signs of that. This is from the breakaway group. Oh no, back of the peloton. Ariel Lacourse. This is Jesus Herrera.
On Bookman, I agree. I think he's a definite top 5. From what he's shown so far, he hasn't shown signs of cracking. You do never know in a race like this. It's been a brutally hard Tour de France. But he came in hoping for a top 10, and we've been saying since the start and how he was looking, he's underselling it. He's underrating himself.
It's a good young generation of German cyclists coming through. For the past 10 years or so, it's been the talk of the sprinters, Marcel Kittel, John Degenkolb, etc., Andre Greipel. But now we're looking
and
at...
always Tony Martin.
And Tony Martin is in the time trial category, of course, Tony Martin. But now with Leonard Kemner in the breakaway, he's just 22. Manuel Buchmann, he's in 6th position overall at 26 years of age. They've got a lot to cheer about. The green jersey, Peter Sagan, riding it right up towards the fronts. And this is good news for De Koning Quickstep. They rode conservatively up that climb, and now they have lots of men surrounding that yellow jersey. That is very good.
And now I think we'll start to up descent and through the next valley section and towards the bottom of the Izoard, they'll start to use up riders with their final turns of the day, their final turns of pace on the front of the peloton. Nikias Arndt, he continues to push on. He's just 100 metres. There's been a crash.
And this is Michael Valgren, and that looks like Lawrence de Plus by the looks of it. George Bennett, in fact, the skinny figure of the Kiwi climber, George Bennett. This is disastrous for Steven Kruijswijk. Nicholas Roach is the rider in the red colours. Bennett has been riding brilliantly throughout this race. He wants to get going again. He is as tough as they come, George Bennett, trying desperately to shrug it.
He's saying, just get your hands off me, give me the bike, let me get going. He is in, you could see he was in terrible pain. And he's being told, take this one. Don't waste any more time. He can hardly get himself onto the bike.
Oh, he can barely move that hip. He is tough, George Bennett. He's getting help to put his foot into the pedals. That is extraordinary. There's Roach in the red colours, but Bennett is the bigger story because he's a key man to support their team leader, Steven Kruijswijk.
He's pedalling again, a good sign. He's got it moving. A bad sign for the rest of the day. Terrible to see. But just how tough is he?
There was no thought of stopping. There was no thought of giving up. I'll get back on the bike and then I'll work it out. Let's take a quick look at it.
Right there. Coming in. Right in front of George Bennett.
Roach went in front of him.
And the rest swerving around the bikes. But obviously something slippery on the road because Roach just went down completely unexpectedly.
And Roach has got good bike handling skills.
Just as he turned in, the bike just went out from underneath him.
Maybe caught on that grid in the road, a little bit of a crack.
Maybe it just looked really slippery because there was a rider that went down in front of them. Then Roach went down on his own and George Bennett just had nowhere to go. And at these speeds, straight into him.
And even though Bennett didn't cause the crash, he was just unfortunate. He was really unlucky in the wrong place at the wrong time. How much do you think that crash will rattle him on the descents? It's not appearing to have much of an effect at the moment with George Bennett.
It looks a little bit crooked, but the good sign was he was up and out of the saddle to accelerate out of that corner. So hopefully that loosens back off when you go down. That first impact, you feel initially, that first microsecond, like I've done huge damage. And then you wait. And it starts to subside a little. It still hurts like all...
Hurts a lot.
Hell, it does.
I will keep an eye on that very closely with George Bennett, unfortunately, being involved in that crash, along with Nicholas Roach. Meanwhile, in the breakaway, number 63, they've already had their incidents, the Movistar team, as it was one of the teammates of Andre Amador, Carlos Verona, who crashed from that breakaway group. But he's rejoined the leading group. 7 minutes and 36 seconds now, the advantage for Nikias Arndt.
That was that same corner.
It was a left-hand corner where he went off into the edge.
Corner, Verona was off in the embankment on the other side. So there has been something there that's brought them undone.
Help but wonder if it was that crack that might have pushed
possibly in the little crack, or just a really slippery little piece. Sometimes if you see those little road repairs where that crack was, they fill it with a rubbery sort of tar substance. When it's really hot like it is today, see that number 32? That's how many degrees it is where they are at this altitude. It is really hot out there today. It's hot enough to melt those little repair sections, make it really soft, and if you turn across it, your wheel can let go.
Here's our sole leader, Nikias Arndt, a winner of the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. And it was on these roads where Cadel put in one of the best performances of his career, from Briançon to the top of the Col de Galibier, when he saved the Tour on a stage that was won in brilliant fashion by Andy Schleck. The peloton does not wait for George Bennett. They're just getting on with business out in front. And then, not even just on the politeness of the peloton would George Bennett expect the peloton to be waiting for him under these circumstances. This is Malcolm Murku at the front, followed by Yves Lampard. Casper Asgreen is the next in line. Dries Devenins is still there for De Koning Quickstep. So too is Enric Mas. I thought I spotted Elia Viviani.
Oh, he'll still be there, especially judging on his ride in the Pyrenees the other day. turns of pace on the Category 1 climb and put in a fantastic ride. The other sprinters still also in this group, like Groenewegen and Caleb Ewan. And on the descent, it's not chasing the break, trying to take them back. It's just minimising any further gains without taking big risks. Is back to George Bennett. On his way back towards the peloton. Still going to be a tough chase for him. Just looking for one of the race vehicles to go past. He can enjoy a bit of slipstream. Hopefully he can chase his way back up to the next car. Too far in front of him for a slipstream.
That is his team car that is in front of him.
He's got there's a commissaire near that car.
And there was one in the red car that went straight past him just then. He'll still be in the convoy when they get to the bottom of this descent, though. And I wonder if he's wanting the team mechanic to go over the bike that he started the day on, so eventually he can change back on to the same bike. But he's a minute and a half behind. It's a lot of chasing to be done for George Bennett.
But it will see him get back into that convoy. That convoy is longer than a minute and a half. So by the time he gets to the bottom of the descent, he'll have a few cars whiz past him. Then they'll start to form up. And then there's always one who does the right thing, especially for riders who had a mechanical problem or a crash. They slow down as they come past you, let you pick up the slipstream behind the car and just drag you on to the back of that convoy. And then one by one, you leapfrog your way back up to the peloton.
That time check is from the front of the peloton, so you've got that whole length of the peloton as well.
They're over a minute long at the moment as well.
With Mikael Mørkøv being the rider at the front as they approach the last 100 kilometres. Back with Bennett. Then team car in front of him. He's not going full gas down this descent. They know that it's Bennett that is chasing. He just a little out of shape on that corner.
He saw he was just coming in a little bit too tight. The corner was a bit tighter than he thought. You've just got to get it straightened back up a little bit, do a bit more braking. You've got to do your braking in a straight line and then tip it in. Once you're already tipped in to scrub off serious speed, you've got to straighten up again for a moment. That's what he did. Tipped it back up, harder on the brakes, and then make his way around. So a little misjudgment, but quickly picked up and solved.
A good correction. De Koning Quick-Step finding themselves on the front, defending the yellow jersey. This is not a team that has been built to come into the Tour de France to try and win the race overall. Even they have been caught by surprise as to how good Julian Alaphilippe has been. 3 votes for Alex Dowsett. This is in relation to Luke Rowe and Tony Martin once again. Tony and Luke really should have won a joint most combative rider for yesterday, but they got excluded from the race as a result of that. So 3 votes for Alex Dowsett. That moves him up into 2nd place. Equal with Thibaut Pinot. They're both on 10. George Bennett is on 12. But I'm changing the rules again. We've got a late addition. 4 votes for Mikhail Kwiatkowski, who's played again on the battle between Tony Martin and Luke Rowe. He said, the Panzerwagen and Captain Luke, I know you both well, and hard to imagine racing without those dudes. 100th anniversary edition of Yellow, they deserve a yellow card, not a red one. That was the take a lot of people had on it, but we've spoken about this incident. At the time yesterday when I saw it, I didn't think a lot of it. I didn't think it was so bad. But then when I watched some more footage and you got a little bit more detail, Luke Rowe had his hand off the handlebars onto the jersey of Tony Martin. Tony Martin virtually ran Luke Rowe into where there were spectators. It was dangerous for other people around them, not just for themselves.
And that little snippet we saw, the only part we saw in the live coverage, and we thought, well, okay, a little altercation. They'll have some explaining to do. But when the rest of the footage came through and we saw what led to it, what ensued, over the space of a few minutes, then it seems reasonable that they've taken the decision to pull them out of the Tour. The race moves on, and they're now on to the Izoard. Our 2 leaders have started the climb, Bernard and Van Avermaet.
And the peloton going upstream as the Whitewater Rafters making the most of the fun going downstream. What I did like about Luke Rowe and Tony Martin yesterday was that they did a video together to both, well, apologise to a whole bunch of people. They actually owned it. They said they did do the wrong thing. They felt that it was a bit harsh, and I can understand them holding that position. This is the Case de Desert that we got a brief look at a little bit earlier on. Goes up to 2,220 metres in altitude. Luke and Tony both owned what happened. They weren't too content with the decision that was made to be excluded, but the jury's never going to change its mind. What I would have liked to have seen from the UCI and the race jury, and I'd like to see this on a lot of other decisions from them, is actually make their own statement. Explain, this is the decision we made and this is why. They don't have to go into answering questions about it. In the same way that we see in NFL in particular, the referee says, you know, well, first down, penalty, rush, defence, whatever it may be, you know what the decision is.
And someone's always going to disagree with it.
Absolutely.
Always. 100% of the time, you won't have 100% of the people with you.
Yeah.
But make a statement, say exactly what you said. This is the decision. This is why. Full stop. No more questions. Next stage.
I'd like to see the UCI do more of that to explain what is happening within the sport. Without that, we just get lots of people, ourselves included, speculating and debating. And then you see on social media photos of the UCI out there measuring sock height.
Good point.
How others...
Moving on.
Go.
Okay, we're done with that.
This is Roach.
Yep, so where he went down right in front of George Bennett. He was also on that, whatever that was that made the road so slippery at that point. The front wheel washed out on him and just went straight down. That's a whole lot of skin off for Nico Roach.
This is Perrichon from the breakaway. Our other daily awards, one of them is the unsung hero of the day, and I had Pierre-Luc Perrichon as the unsung hero yesterday, 8th on the stage, and the Cofidis team having a pretty tough tour.
Yeah, he did a really good ride yesterday, tried so hard. He was still in second position near the top of the final climb yesterday, caught by Asgreen and dropped, and then caught by the chasing group and faded through to 8th. So not even a top 3 finish for him, but he rode really well. And on top of that, unsung hero of yesterday, he's been really brave and he's got himself into the break again today, but looks like he has hit the wall.
He has run out of horsepower. This is the big breakaway group, now out to 8.5 minutes for the leaders that are just a little bit further up the road. This is a big advantage for number 61, Nairo Quintana. It's Nicky's aunt who was doing the chasing.
He was off the front before, trying to increase the pace. Now the attack's gone with Van Avermaet and Bernard. He is up the front, trying to keep them rolling on. The FDJ rider just being moved out of the way by Romain Bardet. Just hand on the hip, move across, stay out the way. I know you're trying to slow this down because of Thibaut behind. Go and sit on the back.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to slow this group down.
So just eased him out of his way, Romain Bardet, and rolled on through.
Our 2 leaders on the road. This is Greg Van Avermaet, followed by Julien Bernard. So unsung hero of the day yesterday, Pierre-Luc Perrichon. Disappointment of the day, based on his reaction after the stage, was Daniel Oss of Bora Hansgrohe. He doesn't get many opportunities to race for himself. He knows Matteo Trentin well. He missed that move by Matteo Trentin. Even if he didn't have the legs to go with him on the climb. It was a rare occasion after the stage yesterday where Daniel Oss stormed straight onto the bus without talking to a single journalist. He was really disappointed. Chris Juul Jensen, along with Adam Yates, in the breakaway yet again today.
Oh, there's a bit of pace on here and a lot of riders going out the back now. Movistar are riding at the front of this group. But
this is Marc Soler, followed then by Mikel Landa, and they have Nairo Quintana in the breakaway.
They are setting up Mikel Landa. So don't worry about Nairo Quintana, and maybe there are 2 separate races being ridden by one team. We've talked about what's been going on within that team. Nairo Quintana is leaving. He's on the outer with his teammates. He's up the front in the breakaway and in virtual second overall at the moment and creeping closer and closer, almost within a minute of the yellow jersey. And now his team's gone to the front on the peloton, completely exploded it on the lower slopes of the Izoard. And Mikel Landa is looking like he wants to get on the go.
Incredible, the damage that is being done. Number 47, that's Dylan Toynes. Berhane, the Eritrean national champion. Roach still struggling after his big fall earlier on, that also cost dearly for George Bennett. We're going to hear from Mikel Landa soon. I wish we could get down to them now. There is Kruijswijk from Jumbo-Visma, just in front of the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe. They are putting the pressure on pretty early. And now Alaphilippe calling for a bidon from the side of the road from a team helper. How many team helpers does he have still in this group? It's one of those De Koning Quick-Step helmets towards the back, but not for much longer perhaps, because this is a searing tempo being set by one of our favourites from this year's race, Marc Soler.
He has been the best teammate. If there was an award for assists, it's Marc Soler.
We should call that the Scottie Pippen medal.
If everyone knows enough about basketball from
Come
the
on.
90s.
They must. Scottie Pippen, one of the greats. This is Dan Martin, and that is disappointing. And it also shows how quick they are riding out in front.
Well, we saw Dan Martin dropped in the Pyrenees a few days ago, so the writing was on the wall. Tried to fight back, but you're always going to get found out. In the final few days of the Tour de France, when you hit the high mountains, you can't bluff anymore.
The peloton being blown to pieces. Dan Martin, a rider who had 10 overall.
This is very, very early for Dan Martin to be dropped. So you just have to think
David
that something is wrong with
Robbie,
him.
number 53. This is significant for Thibaut Pinot, the big French hope. His key teammate in the high mountains has been distanced really early. There's 80 kilometres to race.
This is what a lot of contenders have been saying about this tour.
Moscon now gone from Ineos. Patrick Conrad from Bora Hansgrohe. So too Jonathan Castroviejo. So Geraint Thomas and Egan Bernal are being isolated.
They're starting to be isolated, exactly.
This is
Yates on the move with Bardet, then Slusenko and Quintana. This is the signal up front. They've all heard what's going on behind. The race is lighting up. 80 kilometres to go. Riding for the stage win. Time to get going.
And Quintana is riding for the stage win, I think. Mikel Landa is leaving the team at the end of the season, but he seems to have the whole team supporting him and working for him. Quintana looks much as if he's the outlier within the squad. This is Adam Yates now at the front. They are still ploughing away on the Izoard with more than 5 kilometres to climb.
The gradient at the moment of 11%, so no wonder it is splintered. And no shots recently of Greg van Avermaet and Julien Bernard.
But they are still leading, according to the race computer, by a minute.
Yep, 1 minute and 1 second they are off the front.
Kreuziger, start of the day, 15th overall at 12 minutes down.
This is Guillaume Martin from Wanty Group Goubert.
16th at the start of the day. His ambitions for a top 15 finish. And he might still be able to get it because lots of people have been dropped. Enric Mas is still in this group for the yellow jersey, the teammate of De Koning Quick-Step's Julien Alaphilippe.
The man who just swung out, back of the picture, grabbed a bidon. Thibaut Pinot, his words in his interview are proving to be prophetic.
They are.
The Izoard, something's going to happen there. That's going to light the race up.
And it's Movistar that's doing it. He still has one teammate. That's the rider in the red colours, the Swiss champion, Reichenbach.
This is Aru at the back in the white colours.
Kangert in the pink colours. Well, Poles at the back of the group from Ineos is under pressure.
On the left-hand side, just up ahead, is Richie Porte. He's next to Rigoberto Urán. This group is being whittled down very, very quickly to the top 10 GC contenders by Marc Soler.
Bookman is still here for the Bora Hansgrohe team. De Plus is there in the yellow and black colours for Stephen Kruijswijk, but no Bennett.
No George Bennett. And after that crash, I guess that was to be expected. He only just got back, and I'm sure he's struggling with the impact of that crash.
When Marc Soler went to the front, the gap was around 8 minutes to the 2 leaders. It's now down to 6.5.
And he's completely blown it apart. Our 2 leaders, Greg van Avermaet, also getting a bidon from the Trek team car. There's the team of Julien Bernard, the man on the front. He's looking comfortable, Bernard.
He does look good, doesn't he? Romain Bardet. He's now been caught by other members from that breakaway, so they lose a little bit of momentum.
A lot of riders coming back from in the background as well. Yates, he went once. There was a big acceleration from Adam Yates. Tracked by Bardet, lured out Quintana as well. Now they've eased off a bit of looking around. Thies Benoot, he's also returned to the back of this group.
This is Van Avermaet. Always easy to spot with the gold colours.
It was
and Julien Bernard has gone forward on his own. He has not attacked Greg van Avermaet. He has just ridden away from him. You said he looked good. And he does.
Yep, looked comfortable. Van Avermaet, he's out of his comfort zone completely onto a whole different type of terrain, not one that suits him. But he'll always have a go to see if he can make it work.
Damiano Caruso from Bahrain Merida, Lutsenko of Astana, Woods of EF, and the Sunweb, Leonard Kamna. Look at how small the gear is that Kamna's riding. He rides a really small gear. He's just pedaling gently through those corners as much as he can on a climb like this. Woods
is on the move, so that's an attack by Michael Woods on that group. And we're looking at those gears, and I'd imagine today some riders have even gone to the semi-compact, so maybe even down as low as a 36 or a 38 chainring on the front, and on the back you'd assume they're riding at least a 27 cog as well.
This is Woods, followed by Lutsenko.
The thing is now it's hard to tell. There's so many variations that are possible. Compact, semi-compact, even through to one buys and a long throw derailleur with a 12 speed on the back. You can go up to a 32 cog on the back wheel as well.
Compact is king, I can assure you. For us weekend warriors. This is Fabio Aru in the white colours, riding his own rhythm, drops, but fighting his way back on. There's not many left in this group at all. Fabio Aru just trying to defend a good position in the overall standings, searching for the form that he had of a few years ago. He currently sits in 17th position. He's at 14 minutes and 15 seconds down. He returns to the group.
This race is a really important stepping stone for Fabio Aru, coming back from that iliac artery surgery that he underwent. And it looks like it's being a career saver.
Richie Porte towards the back of this group. He sits just behind the white jersey of Egan Bernal. And for an 18-month period, Fabio Aru, he couldn't work out what was wrong. Now that he's had that surgery, hopefully it's solved, and he is on his way back to his best.
That was a long shot of the peloton coming through that tiny little downhill section in the Cas Desert. This is back up to the break. Nairo Quintana in second last wheel. Behind him, the young Kamna, Michael Woods, Adam Yates, Lutsenko.
Bardet at the front of that group, picking up the tempo. The Basque flags for Julien Bernard. Soignier on the side with 500 metres to go. You need to be collecting the bid-on extra weight at the top, not with 500 metres to go.
You'd rather it much closer to the top to take on that ballast.
He quickly got rid of the musette bag and made sure he didn't take any extras.
Well, no mistaking where we are. It is the Col du Izard in the Hautes-Alpes.
And support on the left-hand side of the road for Warren Barguil, as it's another Frenchman, Romain Bardet, leading this group, closing in on Julien Bernard, but he will get the honour of leading the Tour de France over the top of the Col d'Izoire. And I hope we get to see him go over the top. But the French cameras, they love Romain Bardet.
And he is searching for points for the King of the Mountains competition. He was second over the top of the first Category 1 climb today, the first of the big climbs, taking the points just behind Tim Wellens. Wellens is gone. Bardet, he's looking for top points, and he's closing in on Bernard.
The last 100 metres, he can see the top of the climb. If we look across the shoulder, Bardet is coming, so too is Caruso, and Bernard, unfortunately, he gets caught right on the line. Caruso with maximum points, followed by Bardet. I thought he had enough, but he gets caught at the top of the climb. And they've still got the biggest one to come, the Col de Galibier.
Well, it goes so quickly. No acceleration from Nairo Quintana. He just sticks with Woods and Adam Yates. And Quintana, I thought he was just going to try and make a move around Woods at the beginning of the descent there. There's the catch over the top of Bernard, Damiano Caruso. Also having some thoughts of the King of the Mountains competition. An all category.
71.5 kilometres to go out in front, and Kamna, he's still slightly off the back, but he's not losing any more ground. So he's bounced back pretty well from that little scare. But he's got me slightly anxious through each of the corners.
Yeah, well, he just, I think for him, stay at about this distance and watch the others. Get the guide on entry point, braking, apex. Follow that all the way down. Don't get yourself too close and make a mistake. Alejandro Valverde.
Valverde upping the tempo, giving Marc Soler a little bit of a rest. Valverde is selfless. Normally the team leader, but the world champion is selfless. He's 8th overall, but he's doing the pacemaking for Mikel Landa. Look at the boost at the back. He wants to stick with the yellow jersey over the top of this climb.
And comfortable enough to take a drink, throw it away, get out of the seat. So he's just ridden his own tempo up the Izoard, and now attack on the back of this group. And maybe this is a case of Valverde wanting to lead the descent. Walt Pouls, he comes around with Geraint Thomas, making sure they're also right at the front. Richie Porte on the left, also moving himself up. Make sure he's in a position towards the front of this group for the descent. Now that doesn't matter for Julian Alaphilippe down the back here. He, if he wanted to, would pass all of them and gap them.
Quite potentially. The orange colours.
Serge Pauls.
From the breakaway. He's returning.
Got that telltale, slightly leg open style as he pedals.
The knees go out, don't they, with Serge Pauls?
Trying to just chase his way onto the back of the group. So he lines up Leonard Kamna. Takes a quick look back, shake of the legs, Alaphilippe style. We see him do that so much as well.
Caruso leading that group around the corner.
I've got to admit, it does feel really good when you do that with your legs. Give him a little loosen off and a little shake.
This is Valverde leading the yellow jersey group. It's the world champion who is at the front.
And to be honest, there's not much more you can do than that. Great view of the descent, the hairpin corners, more open, so no two corners are alike. You've got to take each one on its merit. Different for the entry point, the apex, to get it right.
And you spoke about it earlier today, about how dusty some of the corners are.
Particularly high up on the Galibier, the first few corners, probably the first 5 or 6, until you come down to the point where there's the exit of the tunnel, which the riders will not take today. They'll be up and completely over the top. But until there, yes, it is a little bit dusty on the road. Plenty of people up there too, and standing on the sides and scuffing around and crossing the street. So there's an element of that on the road as well, spreading that dust across.
Serge Pauls has made contact with Alexei Lutsenko. Still Caruso leading, followed by Bardet, then it's Yates, then Quintana, then Bernard, followed by Woods, Kamna, Lutsenko and Pauls. That's the combination out in front from what was originally a 34-rider breakaway.
Which is led, those closest pursuers, by Tim Wellens in the KOM jersey. That's the polka dot jersey on the screen at 56 seconds behind.
But he missed out on points on that climb, an Oars category climb. Bardet starting to close down.
And if he missed them on that climb, it's even more likely he's going to miss them by further on the Galibier, where it's not just the points on the top, but it's the lure of the stage win. And maybe for Quintana, trying to push himself up the standings, really waiting to see how it plays out with Movistar and how that involves Quintana in their team plan.
What I would dearly love to see at some point today is Max Richesi. Now, this is the benefit. I'll get back to Quintana in a moment. The benefit of Max Richesi, the Argentinian national champion, being in the breakaway today. He survived over that climb. He can now support the yellow jersey, Julian Alaphilippe, into Briançon through the Valley Road before they hit the next climb. I would love to see Nairo Quintana from that breakaway group support Mikel Landa on the Galibier.
Question is, will Landa get to Quintana? Because maybe to do that, Quintana would have to sit up.
When Landa went past Quintana on the stage to Prat d'Albi, just on the outskirts of Foix, they didn't even look at each other. It was ice cold, the relationship between the two of them on the road. This is De Boost, sprint lead-out rider for Caleb Ewan, following the French national champion, the former King of the Mountains winner, Warren Barguil.
And winner on top of that last climb. And I wonder how Warren Barguil was feeling cresting the Izoard today, and whether those memories came flooding back to him. I'm sure they did.
And Peter Sagan, the green jersey group, at 13 minutes. This is turning out to be a good day of survival for that group with Peter Sagan. At the moment, no threat of being outside the time delay. Woods is a rider who is notoriously a little nervous on the descents. He's had a few nasty crashes, one of them coming this year. was on the stage at the Saint Etienne when he was right in front of the defending champion, Geraint Thomas. And then we saw Gianni Moscon's bike get hit by one of the following vehicles and snap clean in half. His bike handling skills, though, Michael Woods, they continue to improve, and he's certainly not the worst descender in the professional peloton. He's beginning to really hold his own. He's stuck with this group. He's got a lot more confidence, Michael Woods, when he descends in a small group with no one behind him. It's when there's somebody behind him that he gets anxious.
And I think on these long flowing descents where, what I spoke about before, you're able to gauge it off other riders. Look at the best descenders. Which line is he taking in? Do that. Most likely you'll come out the other side just fine.
Beautiful descent off the Col d'Izoard. That is the peloton that we look down upon, being led by the Movistar team. And they still have Nairo Quintana in the leading group at 5 minutes and 25 seconds in front. In this yellow jersey group is the team leader for Trek Segafredo, Richie Porte. Richie starts the day in 10th position overall at 6 minutes and 30 seconds down. He was amongst the riders that we caught up with before the stage got underway. Let's now have a listen to what Richie Porte had to say.
Inside 42 kilometres to go where they sit.
Adam Yates and Romain Bardet marking each other.
They're not far away now from the Lauterre beginning.
About 1,500 metres according to the race computer before they hit the official start of the climb. I haven't ridden this road, I've driven this road. The climb has already started.
Well, there it is.
Well, there it is, a lot closer. It was only 500 metres at that point. The beginning of the climb, 23 kilometres.
I think that's more scare factor than anything. Calling it the Col de Galibier 23 kilometres long.
Guess what? It works.
It's got you scared. You're not even having to ride it.
Correct.
It is 23 kilometres of climbing, but the steep slopes are in the last 9 kilometres. So the first part, with a group that can get away like this one that's off the front, got a good chance to actually work together and build a gap.
Andre Amador setting the tempo at the front of this chasing group. Well, the lead group, I should say now, as they've reeled Tim Wellens in. He's been on the offensive. Plenty of salt stains always on the nicks of Tim Wellens. Pump track.
This is where you learn those skills. Maybe not for the climbing, but certainly the bike handling and a love of cycling.
It's all about having fun.
I'd do that over Galibier any day.
Yeah, I reckon you get a fair bit of company. This is Castroviejo, followed by Poles. Geraint Thomas having the conversation back to the team car with Nicolas Portal. Mike Turnison is in this group as well now for the Jumbo-Visma team. That's why he was in the earlier breakaway, so he could help along this section.
If needed. At the moment, they're just sitting back, letting Ineos do the work.
Kreuziger, who had the mechanical problem into Briançon, has returned to that group. That was a good effort.
Able to ride his own tempo up the rest of that steep climb and then come back through the convoy. This is the front of the race. Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion in the gold helmet. His teammate, Serge Pauls, behind him. Van Avermaet emptying the tank to the foot of the real Galibier. Well, as far as he can go up the Lauterre.
Into the Alps, into the high mountains, and it's not just about skiing. Plenty of cycling, mountain biking, hiking. Beautiful views, obviously, once you get towards the top of any of these mountains.
Thies Benoot, he's been dropped. So has Leonard Kamna in front of him. Woods is on the back of the front group.
Kamna is riding like a time trialist on this climb. Caruso is the one driving the tempo at the front for Bahrain Merida and just whizzing by the spectators.
Then it's Bardet, Lutsenko, Quintana, Woods.
He's finished as high as 11th in the Tour de France in the past, Damiano Caruso. He's been in the top 10 in the Giro d'Italia and the Volta a España. He can seriously climb. He was recruited to this team to support Vincenzo Nibali in the high mountains. Now he gets his own chance. They're close to making that right-hand turn, Robbie, where the road gets narrow and it gets steeper and it gets rougher.
Yep, the first couple of kilometres when they make that right-hand turn onto the real Galibier, 6% average gradient. Then it kicks up to 8, eases off very slightly, and then you get the first of the steep sections at 9%. A little bit of a break after that. The last kilometre at 9% feels like 15.
Lutsenko is attacking again. The steeper sections of the climb suit Michael Woods in the pink colours at the back for EF. The pace comes off after that Lutsenko attack. Lots of Belgian flags off to the left. Number 42, this is Damiano Caruso. They're about to make the right-hand turn. Here it is. They leave the Lauterre, and now they officially start the Col de Galibier. And in the virtual general classification, Nairo Quintana is still holding on to a spot inside the top 10. He's up to 9th. Here's Andre Amador from Movistar. He's been dropped from the breakaway group. He's got some fresh supplies for Mikel Landa. Marc Soler is still in that group. Number 63, Andre Amador. Job done. Well, Poels is on the front. 2 Dutchmen at the front. 1 a pure climber. That is Wout Poels, who's currently setting the tempo. And then behind him, a man for the Spring Classics, Dylan van Baarle. He is super versatile. Lutsenko, one more time to the well. Quintana is the first to respond.
So aggressive, the Kazakh champion. Big accelerations. Is this because he believes he's just the strongest, can ride them all out of the wheel, or tried to just get a head start before the really hard sections of the Galibier? He has been aggressive from kilometre 0. Quintana, he goes straight to the front over the top.
Well, he had a really cruisy day yesterday, Lutsenko. I thought it was a stage that suited him, that he could have won, but he just sat in the peloton, rode soft pedalling, saving himself for this opportunity.
Caruso, he's ridden back across the gap. Bardet as well. Woods at the back of the group, happy to follow just at the moment. Quintana, a look over the shoulder. Where's the next acceleration? And swings away.
In the background, Kamna has just been riding his own pace. Junior time trial world champion. Doesn't get distracted by the accelerations of the pure climbers. He's clawing his way back, 1 pedal stroke at a time. It's pretty windy. The Welsh flags blowing in the breeze.
Well, think back to 2011 when we saw the race come and finish on top of the Galibier. It was those crosswinds on the slopes of the Galibier itself. It had the group in the gutter, nearly splitting in the crosswinds on a climb.
Some support from the Welsh. Free Luke Rowe has been written overnight after Luke Rowe and Tony Martin were disqualified from the race yesterday.
Well, they've still got another man to cheer for in defending champion Geraint Thomas, and I'm sure they'll be screaming Go G and Cymru am byth, but at the moment it's Canada.
And it is Woods in pink, followed again by Lutsenko. Woods will like the steeper portion of this climb right near the top. Quintana now attacks. The Colombian, he likes the thin air. He's turning the clock back. He burst onto the scene in 2013 and they all look at each other.
That's got to be a collective uh-oh. Quintana following all the attacks, rolled through over the top of Lutsenko on the last one, and now he says, I can go once, twice, and the third time's a charm.
And despite all the apparent disagreements between Nairo Quintana and other teammates, they have supported him fully today and they've put him into a stage-winning position.
Bardet doing what he has to do, but now asking for assistance. Michael Woods, he comes through. They've got absolutely nothing to lose. And the mountain will speak for itself. It's not going to be tactical, who did more or less work. You've got to ride to the top as hard as you can now in pursuit of the Colombian.
Woods in the pink colours, but it's a standoff within this group. Bardet just behind him, number 31. And Quintana, with this lack of momentum here, will quickly open up the gap. He's found his rhythm. At this rate, they will not catch him. Still 25.8 kilometres to go, but they're just looking at each other. Here he is at Nairo Quintana. He's still got a few sprockets to play with on that rear mech. He's 122 metres in front of his former breakaway companions.
Well, think back to last year in the Tour de France, the shortest stage, the 65 kilometres from Bagnères-de-Luchon to Saint-Lary-Soulan. It was Quintana who went to high altitudes and took the stage win.
And attacked early from a breakaway group. He was on the pedals all day long, even though it was a short stage. It was incredibly intense. And here he is again, number 61. Battered and bruised from crashes throughout this year's race. He's had disappointments along the way, but he's bouncing back emphatically. He's inspired a generation, chiefly amongst them this man. It's Bernal. It is not Colombian Independence Day, it's Colombian Climbing Day as they head to more than 2,600 metres in altitude.
Well, it is no surprise to see the Colombians on the offensive at these altitudes. Nairo Quintana, another one of those really steep pinches up. He is nearly at the top, just a couple of hundred metres away. Finally, Bardet, he is opening the gap to Lutsenko, but he is so far behind Quintana, surely he cannot catch him.
And he doesn't have the same look of speed or momentum as Nairo Quintana.
The Colombian flag flying high. The fans are getting rabid.
Number 61, a national hero, Nairo Quintana. He's been second and third in the Tour. An overall victory still eludes this great cycling nation, but Quintana is on target for the stage win. And his compatriot Bernal is doing a great job further back down the road. Almost at the top of the Col de Galibier, and it's Nairo Quintana who has scaled its heights first, across the top, and now the rapid descent to the finish. Here comes Bernal.
And look at the gap behind. So metre by metre it was opening, and the higher he goes, the more he loves it, and he's got the rest right under pressure. Julian Alaphilippe, he has Enric Mas. He has struggled, he's been ill, he's doing his best and getting better, but he's no match at the moment for the young Colombian in the white jersey.
And by the same token, he can't ride any faster than Julian Alaphilippe can keep up with. There's no points. You can see them just in the distance. Briefly into the slipstream of the motorbike, Bernal there, he's climbing so quickly. He's out to 20 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey. He started the day at 2 minutes and 2 seconds behind.
So Alaphilippe, he can afford to just let him ride away in the last couple of kilometres uphill, and he still has that weapon, his descending.
And it is a weapon. Romain Bardet. It has been a season of suffering, a tour of suffering, but he's showing his spirit this afternoon. His body looks contorted. It could be a visit to the chiropractor at the end of the day, but one where his morale will be starting to bounce back. Even though it's the stage victory going up the road, surely now to Nairo Quintana, Bardet has put up an almighty defence.
Yeah, it's been a very brave ride by a man who saw his Tour dream crumble very early in this Tour de France. Nothing like what he expected. He said, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. Many would have expected a guy like him, with what he's already done in the Tour de France previously, to say, that's it, I've got to pull out, go back, rest and reassess. He's pushed on. He wants to do something for the fans, for himself, for his team. Today was the day. Quintana is purely better.
And on the topic of doing something, it is Bernal who's doing something big, very big. He takes a look across the shoulder. He's out to now 35, 37 seconds. He's making a huge impact and a charge towards being ahead of his teammate and potentially the next yellow jersey wearer. Still Enric Mas setting the tempo, followed by Geraint Thomas. It's then the yellow jersey Alaphilippe, followed by Landa. Then it's Thibaut Pinot. Bookman, Kruijswijk, Port, Bennett is still there, so too Valverde.
Biggest victims of Egan's Bernal attack? Thomas and Pinot.
Not Alaphilippe.
That's what I'm thinking, because once they get to the descent, Alaphilippe will think, doesn't matter who sits on my wheel down here, it is so steep, it is so technical. What he's got to be careful of is overcooking it himself.
Yes. Guillaume Martin, he was dropped on the Col d'Izoard. It was a bigger group than this when he was dropped, but he has survived on the Galibier. That is fantastic.
He seems to have got better as the stage has gone on, but the group is quite small and he's still here. He was dropped from a much larger group earlier on the Izoard. So a good fight back from the Frenchman.
They're inside the final kilometre. The general classification virtual. Bernal is now up to second. He's only 1 minute and 19 seconds behind the yellow jersey as the defending champion. Geraint Thomas launches his defence. Thibaut Pinot, he has to answer the call. The yellow jersey is at the back of this group.
And this is what these riders call riding economically with a view of what's still to come. So the attack's coming late on the Galibier. So they're gapping Julian Alaphilippe, but a big, big risk to do this earlier. Maybe this is just a morale booster for themselves for tomorrow and just start to open up the cracks on Alaphilippe and then try and complete the job tomorrow and on the last chance on Saturday.
It's Bookman leading the chase. Pinot is next in line. Then Kruijswijk, Landa, Uran, Alaphilippe. Port is fighting. Port is sticking with them. This is Geraint Thomas. He lost his best mate yesterday. Rowe was kicked out and he's kicking forward.
This is behind the group on the wheel of Richie Port. Alaphilippe fighting his way back on into the corner. Richie Port, more steady state, all still together. Kruijswijk at the front of this group. Thomas still going away from them.
Alaphilippe, the gap now starts to open, but he sprints back onto the wheel. The fight is big in Julian Alaphilippe.
Every time it goes steep through the corner, gapped off, gets flatter, accelerates again, rides his way back on. Back with Thomas. He has Bernal up the road in front of him. Thomas's attack has served to shorten the gap that Bernal had opened up. But it's the 1-2 punches now. Port goes past a fading Julian Alaphilippe, but he will easily descend back across that gap and go past them.
And he's getting pushes from the crowd that are nearly knocking him off. The crowd need to give them space. Make it safe. They're trying to support the Frenchman, but safety is the first priority. Alaphilippe continues to fight. So too does the defending champion. Thibaut Pinot is closing back. Uran, Landa, and this is Alaphilippe. And they've just about caught him at the top. Thibaut Pinot reels the Welshman back in. Landa is there. Bookman suffering, but staying in contact. He's the rider at the back of the group. No, he's not, because Kruijswijk is just behind him.
Well, Kruijswijk is just off the wheel. He is losing just a little bit of ground. The Dutchman, more a man for the regular climbs, not the very steep slopes, but they are coming towards the top now. Over the top, it's Pinot.
He does up the jersey, the yellow. Port is the next one across. Where's yellow? Alaphilippe. He can descend rapidly. He drops like a stone. Here he is. How quick is he on the way down under this physical duress?
Over the KOM, into the big chain ring, and Julian Alaphilippe is about to find his happy place.
Well, let's see if he does, because he is descending under the stress of enormous fatigue.
Back to Quintana, big gap. He doesn't have to take big risks down this descent. Have a good look. Break a little bit earlier than normal. Bardet is on the chase, but the gap is big.
1:39. He's got 1:39 on Romain Bardet. Bardet is good downhill, but surely he's not good enough to close a 1:39. Egan Bernal is working his way towards second place overall. Who's the team leader at Ineos?
Well, it's still a two-pronged attack at Ineos. Bernal goes, but it doesn't stop Geraint Thomas going on the attack as well. His was nullified. Now Pinot on the front. He'll be happy with that. He's not a noted descender. In fact, he's a noted liability to a group on a descent. Here comes Julian Alaphilippe.
Textbook perfect.
And swing back out wide. Find the next apex. Use all the road. Back to the other side. This is good descending.
By contrast, you mentioned Thibaut Pinot. He said some people have fears of heights and spiders. He has a fear of speed. This descent is fast, hitting the apex and on the way out with just a millimetre to spare.
Using every centimetre back out of the seat. Little sprint up to the next one. Heavy on the brakes. Nairo Quintana, he knows he's got an unassailable lead. Just needs to hold it together. A nice, regular, flowing descent for the Colombian.
Can the yellow jersey close down the gap to the Thomas group at 5:50? 18 seconds?
Easily.
Easily is a confident response from Robbie McEwen. What about Egan Bernal?
He doesn't look as confident downhill as a Julien Alaphilippe, but I think he's still going down faster than Thibaut Pinot.
Here is Thibaut Pinot, who's on the hoods now into the drops.
24 seconds between the group, Egan Bernal, and this group here we're seeing with Thomas, Pinot, Landa,
Uran,
and Bookman at the back.
And Kruijswijk returning.
Next man in shot, hopefully, is Richie Porte, not too far behind these. And certainly he'll be picked up soon by Julien Alaphilippe.
How willing is the Geraint Thomas group to take some risks in the hope that they can hold off the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe?
Thomas signalled ahead. Oh no, they've said the group Maillot Jaune. Well, he's a group on his own.
Yeah, he is the Maillot Jaune. Tout seul at the moment. This is Nairo Quintana, who is also all on his own at 6:07 and making a big impact on the overall standings.
10k to go. Gradient not as steep at the moment. 57 kilometres an hour. Big gear. Push it on through. Some nice straighter sections so you can ride a straight line down pieces like this and line up that car in the distance and see what the next corner's doing.
As we saw at the Olympics in Rio with Annemiek van Vleuten, who looks set to win with just the descent in front of her. It's not over until it's over.
Absolutely not. He's got to hold it together, but to his advantage, he had a minute and a half over the top, so he doesn't need to take the risks, and he's still got a minute 33 to Romain Bardet.
He's lost 4 seconds on the descent. In the most technical part, that's nothing. You said he was good. He is good.
He is good. Bernal at 5:23, another 31 seconds behind him is the group of Thomas and Pinot, and just 10 seconds behind him, 11, is Julien Alaphilippe. Richie Porte somewhere in between.
Well, Porte will see Julien Alaphilippe either blast past him or catch up to him and have a wheel to be able to follow. It's an opportunity for Porte to return to the Geraint Thomas group. This is Egan Bernal, still on his own.
31 seconds now to the group behind him for Bernal. Start of the day at 2:02. Clawing back some time at the moment.
And he can see remnants of the breakaway just in front of him for him to be able to chase down. Leonard Kabner, Caruso. Alaphilippe has caught Richie Porte. And Richie Porte is almost back in the group. There's Richie Porte trying to keep up with Julien Alaphilippe, who is chasing the motorbikes. Porte going wide. Big difference between the descending ability of Julien Alaphilippe and pretty much everybody else in this group.
Porte missing the entry in, like way wide of the apex. Start wide, tip it into the inside of that corner. Follow the lines of Julien Alaphilippe.
Easier said than done.
It is easier said than done, but the technique is what you've got to do. Start wide, get in and hit that inside of the corner.
Alaphilippe has the technique and he's fearless. Thibaut Pinot
on the way down, and now the pressure is going to be on the rest of these riders to follow Julien Alaphilippe.
That's a challenge in itself. Stick with him on the way down.
We see how much ground he's already made up and then just whizzed his way through the group.
Thibaut Pinot looks over the shoulder, he sees yellow, and his heart must sink. Can I keep up? We're about to find out.
Already a few metres between them.
He's attacking on the way
10
down.
10 metres between them, 15 metres between them. The gap opening up. This is now the attack I was expecting from Julien Alaphilippe. You offload me uphill, just wait, I'll be back.
Sprinting out of each of the corners.
He's got to be careful he doesn't overcook it. He's a very good descender. He'll have these guys on the ropes. Also just got to be careful with how much risk he takes.
There's only a few guys in the peloton that you would say can match him. Peter Sagan is one of them. That's how good he is. Richie Porte is struggling to stay in contact, but is doing a good job by maintaining that back wheel of Kruijswijk. Another acceleration, a look across the shoulder. Julien Alaphilippe, he's all in on the way down.
Quick drink, back in the bidon holder.
Rigoberto Urán wants a piece of the action. He's pretty quick on the way down.
He's missed that one. He's come in quick to get past the group. A little bit wide, but he's still in position in front of Landa. And Rigoberto Urán, also a very good descender. He is the man to lead them to stay in contact with Alaphilippe.
Bardet taking a little bit of time back on Nairo Quintana, but he has just 5 kilometres to go, and from here, it's not technical.
Well, there's a lot more straight sections. Lower down this descent, it really straightens out, like you see now for Nairo Quintana. So Julien Alaphilippe, he's used the most technical part of the descent to get his way back on. The next few corners, he opened a gap, but the rest of it, there's really a lot of pedalling and not as many technical corners anymore.
This is Egan Bernal.
So Bernal can maintain this gap.
Can he find an ally? That's Kamna. No, it's not. This is
Serge Pauls.
Pauls from
Even if it's
CCC.
not an ally, it's a slipstream to run into and back out of, build up a little bit of speed and hit over the top.
4 kilometres for Nairo Quintana.
This is that flatter section before he enters the outskirts of Valois. Then it's very steep downhill. The roundabout with the elk in the middle of it, that's a sketchy little spot to get through at high speed before he dives into the town itself, makes that U-turn across the bridge and kicks up to the finish.
Rigoberto Urán in the pink, working with Alaphilippe. Then it's Kruijswijk, followed by Thomas, Bookman, Pinot, Landa, and Richie Porte at the back.
Well, plenty of allies now for Julien Alaphilippe in the chase behind Egan Bernal. Kruijswijk and Urán both contributing.
30 seconds, the gap between the yellow jersey and Bernal. This is Bardet, second on the road. Straight on pass for Egan Bernal. He can't afford to be waiting and hoping for somebody to give him a hand. He gets on with it.
I think he'll leave Pauls behind with a couple more technical corners. But maybe just as it straightens out a bit, possibly Pauls give him a turn.
Kruijswijk is chasing. He knows the risk of Egan Bernal. And it is pouring with rain at the finish line with the technical final few corners.
Rain at the finish line as you're coming down into Valois, really steep road. And then through that roundabout I just talked about with a couple of K to go. And here it is, wet roads. Quintana, he's now in that very steep section.
That minute and 30 seconds, make the most of that buffer. No need to take any risks at this point. The stage win for Nairo Quintana is more important than his overall position in the battle for yellow.
Into Valois, here comes the roundabout just a little further down. Keep an eye on the car, scrub a lot of speed off here. More technical than it looks. Up over the inside, straight through. Nice and clean for Quintana.
And careful of the zebra crossings. Watch for the paint. 2 kilometres for Nairo Quintana. The French hope for the stage from the breakaway. Bardet holding on to second.
Brave ride from Bardet. He's matched the speed downhill of Nairo Quintana. Taken off maybe 4 seconds since the top. It'll be about as close as he gets.
And Bernal is continuing to lose a little bit of ground on the yellow jersey group. It's now down to 35 seconds.
Yeah, plenty of riders willing to contribute along with Julien Alaphilippe. Kruijswijk has done turns. Bookman here in third wheel. Rigoberto Urán has also been riding on the front.
Porte has held on at the back of the group. So too is Rigoberto Urán.
And you see the open roads, a much more pedalling descent. So when Alaphilippe is getting some allies, then it is a big advantage for him. This is down, coming towards the final kilometre now for Quintana. Gap stayed around what it was over the top of Galibier, 135. Bernal still has Serge Pauls in the wheel as he is about to dive down into Valois with 3 kilometres to go.
And he's not worried about the rider behind him. He may as well not be there because Bernal will not be looking for help. He's just trying to take time. Lutsenko, regardless of what happens at the end, for me, the most combative today.
Outside of Nairo Quintana, ride of the day from Lutsenko. First man off the front in a 2-up for a long time, then joined the next move and the one after that. Every single one until the big group of 33 got away. Hung on so gamely for so long. Can't match the pure climbers. But gee, he's got some grunt.
He's got plenty, hasn't he? This is another fantastic third place finish. This is one of those days where for the stages, the top 3 deserve a spot on the podium. Caruso, the next one through, with Kamna. This is the battle for 4th. Kamna's licking his lips. He looks like he's going to sprint, Robbie.
Well, he's a young man in his first tour. Get everything you possibly can. The sprint opens up. Caruso, Kamna on the right-hand side. The young German, he powers on past. He will take 4th across the line. The young German from Sunweb, Leonard Kamner, a good day out from him in fourth. Caruso, he comes across in fifth.
Lock it in, a huge future for Leonard Kamner. The rain again. This time it's Bernal. 1,500 metres, he's approaching that tricky right-hand turn.
And it's like he's at the finish of a prologue. He's giving it absolutely everything. This fast downhill section to the corner. Just has to be sure to wipe off enough speed into that corner.
And here comes the yellow jersey through the roundabout. 1 kilometre to go for Egan Bernal. Serge Bowles, he's got the front row seat to watch this battle for
he's
yellow.
Quick in.
And he's quick out. That even had you nervous.
I thought I saw a little slip by the back wheel of Serge Bowles as he just got right into the middle of the corner there. And all those riders in the following group, they're going to have to be really careful, try and go with Alaphilippe. He'll come through that corner and he will sprint out of there, put them in the line, try and split the group and cause time differences.
Tish Benoot and Michael Woods, for both these guys, their best performance in this year's tour.
Oh, Benoot was second behind Darren
that's
Lippy
right,
and Brioude.
sorry. I forgot about that one with Benoot.
But this
Good
is
point.
also a very good performance in the high mountains.
Yeah, in terms of placings, that was outstanding, that second place finish. For Woods, it certainly is. And behind is closing. Here comes Bernal. He may well catch these two by the finish line. Tish Benoot with the salt stains, Woods in pink, and this is something for Egan Bernal to chase, to increase perhaps the time gains over the yellow jersey. That's the focus. Where does the clock stop? When the white jersey goes across the line, he keeps on sprinting. Benoot hits the line, 4:46.
Here's the group with Alaphilippe. Bookman is the man on the front. Richie Porter stayed in contact at the back. Bookman, Alaphilippe, Kruijswijk, Pinot, Thomas, Landa, all together. Uran.
Bookman sprinting to limit the damage. So too is Steven Kruijswijk. Alaphilippe in yellow. Another huge defence of his overall race lead. It's Kruijswijk who stops the clock around 5:17 thereabouts. The time gain for Egan Bernal, roughly 30 seconds, depending on exactly whether we got the clock stopped correctly with him and the group across the line.
Yep,
Somewhere between 30, 32 maybe.
So for Bernal, it stopped when Tish Benoot hit the line. For the rest,
Barguil.
as the French champion comes across,
it should put Bernal up into second place, just ahead of Geraint Thomas by a few seconds. Here comes the evergreen Benjamin Button Valverde, the 39-year-old, still inside the top 10 overall, started the day in 8th. The guy whose liability is the high altitude. He rode pretty well if that was his weakness today. He's conceding a bit more ground, but this has been very good by Valverde, and the team has won the stage. Guillaume Martin.
Good ride by Martin. Only a little way from the top offloaded. When the attack came from Geraint Thomas is when he lost some ground. He might lose himself a minute and a half or so, minute 40 to the rest of the group, but he's done some good business for his GC aspirations.
Yeah, he'll lose time on yellow, but I think he'll improve his position overall, perhaps from 16th up to 14th. The last couple of years, he's been 22nd and 23rd. This is the Fort de Telegraph that we are now taking a look at. Like many of the great monuments that we see in this region, a defensive mechanism. Fabio Aru, this has been another good performance by the Italian. He is coming back towards some of the best form of his career, and it is a really good sight to see. Well, guess what, Robbie? That's another stage ticked off. We're down to 2 more to go on the Alps. I'm still not convinced that I could pick a winner from here, but Alaphilippe is looking harder and harder to beat, and all of a sudden shaping as the favourite.
They're gnawing away at his lead. Bernal taking 30 seconds today. The attack from Geraint Thomas. They're riding economically today. The first of the big 3 stages in the Alps, a descent down to the finish, not willing to take massive risks. Tomorrow, I think they attack him on the Isère, and then it's an uphill finish to Tignes. And I think they attack him earlier on the ascent of the Isère.
If they can.
They don't want to wait till the last day to do it. They're going to try and unseat him tomorrow.
Then to do it, that guy that just went across the finish line, David Gaudu of Groupama FDJ, a teammate of Thibaut Pinot, might have to be the one to set that tempo early. Here's the classification on the stage. Quintana ahead of Bardet, then Lutsenko. Kamna ahead of Caruso, then Benoot with Woods, Bernal and Pauls at 46 seconds. Then the group of the yellow jersey at 5 minutes and 18 seconds. A 32-second time gain today. Jumbo-Visma are saying that George Bennett crashed on the descent. We don't
From
know
the
anything
Galibier.
else. Here is the general classification. It is still Alaphilippe. 1:30 is his advantage. Now in second place, it's Bernal, followed by the defending champion Thomas, then Kruijswijk, followed by Pinot, Bookman, Quintana, Landa.